Hi all, welcome back. Are you ready?
We're ready.
Poised. Coiled Springs in Argyle Life Towers. Welcome to your 2026-2027 League One and Plymouth Argyle preview. And what a show we've got coming up tonight. I have assembled a hell of a team in front of me. I've got John, I've got Sam, and I've got Graham. We'll be with you for around 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours. Depends on how we go. But it's
I thought it was going to be 65 minutes, Joe.
That's coming up next week.
Right.
That's coming up next week. We're going to be a little bit more structured this year. We're going to be a little less haphazard, but that relies on Sam Down's post-match run-throughs sticking to a certain frame. So we'll see. So welcome back to the Green and White podcast. As you can see on the right hand side of our screen, there is a little QR code, and that is something that we're incredibly proud of ahead of the new season. Since launching in 2015, Argyle Life has grown into something far bigger than we could have ever imagined, bringing together a passionate community of Argyle fans from across Devon, Cornwall and beyond. Over those years, we've seen the incredible things that supporter communities can achieve when they come together behind a cause. So we felt it was time to use our platform that we have built to make a positive difference. That is why we have been proud to announce that we have partnered with the Children's Hospice Southwest as our official charity partner for the 2026-2027 season. Now, over the course of the next 9 to 10 months, we have so much planned that we hope is going to make as big a difference as we can possibly make to the team at CHSW and the families that the money will be going to, because it is an important charity in our region, and we are delighted to be doing our bit to help. Now, if you want to help tonight, there is a QR code on screen where you can donate via our Just Giving platform. All the money goes direct to CHSW. And I also know that amongst our viewership tonight, many of you, like me, will be sad enough over the next 38 weeks to play FPL. You all know it, Fantasy Premier League. And this year we are running our own mini league. It costs £10 to enter, and every single penny of profit goes to CHSW. Now that's important to mention because the company that we're doing the promotion with, they take a very small cut from the whole building of the FPL. So the vast majority of it goes to CHSW. There will be prizes on offer for the first 4 in the league. The cup winner as well, I think, gets a prize. You get a trophy, you get vouchers, you get all sorts. But that's just one thing that we have got coming up for you across the course of the season. So do get involved. Go over to the Argyle Life social media channels and you can find there how you can help us try and make a difference, because that's all we're in this to do. We want to help the families involved with CHSW. Now, welcome back. Let's get straight into the Argyle news from the last week, and it's been a relatively quiet week, which is nice, Sam Down. However, the press conference delivered a bit of bad news this week and the injury to Michael Baidoo.
Yeah, which I think is really a tremendous shame. I did say on the previous pod that he was the player of pre-season, which would give potential for him to either play a big part in our season or maybe more likely that we might recoup some of the fee we paid for him. Unfortunately, now it doesn't look as though either are happening, certainly until maybe November, December, where he could be reintegrated back into the team. Following on from my comments, he had a very good start to the game against Bristol City, came inside, looked threatening, linked up well with Aseni and Peppel. and probably one, if not our best player in the first 25 minutes before he pulled up with what looked like almost like quite innocuous. He was walking off, but then the signal he gave didn't look so good. The fact he was walking unsupported was a positive sign, but he kind of immediately had the kind of grimace shake of his head, gave the old sub sign, as I'm demonstrating on the screen for those who are watching rather than listening.
It's normally 2 hands, Sam, not 1.
Yeah, sorry, you're quite right. But yeah, that's a real shame. We were a winger short anyway, and now we're really are a winger short, because we only have, probably in terms of, because Tegan Finn's not even fit yet either. So we probably, in terms of only actually players who have that as their actual position, only really have Amici and Curtis for 2 positions. Maybe a Saka can play there. At a real push, maybe Will Evans can even play there, but we've only really got Amici and Curtis now for the 2 wide areas. And then you've got players who are playing out of position. So yeah, we need at least 1 more winger, if not ideally 2 now.
Yeah, it's a rough one, isn't it? And as you say, Michael had such a good start to pre-season. Graham, the rest of the press conference was relatively mellow from Tom. He obviously stressed the fact that we are close to our 50% limit, essentially, on what we can and can't do in the rest of the transfer window. We're going to touch on this in a little bit more detail a little bit later, so we don't have to go over too much new ground, if you like, but it looks like the rest of the transfer window could be quite a quiet one in terms of incomings.
Yeah, I mean, Senior Greens, Derek Adams said we were at 85%, and that was pre-Will Evans, so we must be close to it. And I think it's only loans from now on is likely to fill the gap, because the possibilities of any investment coming in before the end of the window in a few weeks' time is unlikely. Yeah, we are. I mean, I don't think we're far away, to be fair. I think Sam's indicated the 2 players we need: a striker and a left midfielder, left winger, one of the 2. Tom did make reference to the Tavistock game and how professional the players that were playing against Bristol City were. And to be fair, it was a bit of a bumpy pitch, but the standouts were actually the 2 under-16s and under-17s that were playing, as well as Freddie and Caleb. Freddie was pretty rampant, but unfortunately his end product wasn't good. But if you come away from the week, I think Tom would feel we've got a squad that's close to being what he wants. We've got some good youngsters coming through, and we've got the loan market to come. So I think he'd be pretty pleased.
Yeah, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that we've still got 5 loan players available to us that we can
Absolutely,
have in the matchday squad. There are a few comments coming in that I'm very quiet. Some would say that's a great thing.
Sorry, what's that, Joe? Sorry, what?
Some would say it's a positive, but this will be rectified in the coming minutes. John Alsop, overall, your pre-season grade for the last few weeks, how do you assess how the pre-season's gone?
Yeah, Sam and I had a bit of a debate about this in our WhatsApp chat the other day. He was a little bit more negative than me overall. I think it's been very good, actually. I think if you had told me after the Northampton game that we would have Mitchell and Harding back, I guess particularly Mitchell, because he was the one I really wanted back, on a permanent basis, that we would have upgraded, in my opinion, in the goalkeeping department, upgraded, I think, in central midfield as well, at least in the sense of getting in one very, very exciting younger player who actually sort of, is a ball player as opposed to one of the more kind of dynamic tackling players that we have. And then on top of that, the only player who was currently contracted to leave would be Talai, and that would be for a fee over £4 million. I think I would have snapped your hand off, to be honest. We're in League One. I think you have to be realistic about what we're able to do. I guess the only... it's tough. Maybe Evans is a separate talking point, Joe, but it sort of does play into my answer, so I'll do a tiny bit on him if that's okay. I think I was a little bit underwhelmed when I first heard that we were in for him as the Tolai replacement. I mean, he is a lot older. There's going to be a lot less resale value. His goal-scoring record is significantly less good. I think he scored 8 league goals last season with a team that finished in mid-table. I didn't think it was a disastrous link by any means. The more I thought about it, though, the better I felt about it. Certainly when the fee was reported, I was quite pleasantly surprised. My sense was maybe that they were going to kind of hold us to ransom, knowing that we had the Talai money coming in and we're maybe getting a bit desperate to get a number 9 through the door. I actually think 400k for a player of his profile is pretty good business. And I also think that Adams in particular deserves enormous credit and trust for the Ronan Curtis edition in January, which was one where we all looked at, taking a player off the hands of a club in our league who wasn't, in his case, not a standout, but someone who was not even getting in their team. I mean, that looked like a really strange piece of business, and he's been brilliant. And having done a bit more digging into Evans, it seems like his off the ball numbers are very good. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we've been really, really strategic about that and thought, Talai was kind of a unicorn player. We're not going to be able to replace him with someone as good. Even if we sign someone who is purported to be kind of, the next big thing from League Two or whatever, it's going to be huge shoes for them to fill. It's going to be a hugely pressurized situation to come in. And if they, don't hit the ground running, then the fans maybe get on their back a little bit. So instead, maybe we've decided, let's look at maybe a slightly different profile. We can elevate Peppel as more kind of the main man and have someone who maybe brings out his good qualities. So I actually, I don't hate it. In the end, as a piece of business, we're not done. As Graham said, it's likely to be loans from now. But personally, I have no issue with that. I think that, you could get whiplash listening to comments that people at the club have made about the merits or demerits of having people in on loan over the last season and a half or so. But I think the attitude that we took towards it, that loans were bad and that we shouldn't utilize the loan market based on the fact that we had a few players recalled halfway through the season was silly and unsustainable. For a club at our level, that is something that you have going for you. That is a way you can get players who are too good for you in the door, because they're not players you necessarily be able to afford to sign on a permanent basis. They're players who might have a glittering future ahead of them in the game, but you can kind of get in on the ground floor of, seeing what they're about if they're on the younger side. Obviously, you can also use loans to bring in players like Mitchell and Dale, and Herbie Kane, who were, to varying degrees, very significant senior players for us last season. So, I think it was unrealistic to sort of have that anti-loan approach. And I suspect in the coming weeks, we'll see that we've done, a bit of a U-turn on that again, if we hadn't already, with those names that I just mentioned. And we sort of utilized that to round out the squad. So yeah, I think it's been a really, really good window. Now, obviously there are some caveats about it going forward. If Peppel were to leave, that would downgrade it significantly, because you would then be under pressure to, I think, go out and probably spend a fair whack of money on a number 9. I think you would need a proven goal scorer, a significant goal scorer, not just someone with Evans's goal scoring record, for example, to come in to replace him. Obviously on the positive side of the ledger, Peppel, we believe his buyout clause has expired, so we would be effectively dictating the terms to another club, and given it's this late in the window, we hope you would get sort of Talai money, or maybe slightly less, but money in that region for him. So it would at least be a good fee coming into the football club. But there's the possibility something like that could happen. But at this moment in time, I feel very good about it and about the business that we've done.
Can I just
go on, Graham?
So much for sound correction.
Go, whatever you've done there has, I'm afraid, made it worse. It sounds like you're from the dark side of the moon over there, I'm afraid.
Just about Will Evans, I think you'll find that his XG rating is much higher than people would expect.
Well, that'll be because of all the videos Mansfield fans were posting of him all over the internet, of him skying the ball over an open goal from 6 yards.
Yeah.
But you're right. That tends to deviate to the,
Yeah, but what Tolly did, which went, I won't say unnoticed, he was relentless. He was relentless on the 2 central defenders, on the ball, off the ball, the lot. And Will Evans is the nearest that we could get to doing the same role. And for that reason, I applaud it. He's a late starter. He's only effectively had 4 seasons. So I think he's going to do really well for us. I really do.
No, it's still not working.
Just go back to what you were doing at the start, because it wasn't great, but it was tolerable. I think this is,
It's definitely louder. It sounds like you're broadcasting from Niagara Falls, but it's definitely louder. So you've solved that problem.
Don't know.
Why don't we try again?
No, that's fine. You're fine.
Hooray! There we go.
And you're closer, which is
I'm
reassuring.
closer as well. We're good to go. Right, let me just explain what's going on. If I'm looking up there, it's because I'm on a 2-monitor program tonight. So that will be the reason that I'm not paying attention to the 3 gentlemen in front of me. It will be because I'm looking at your lovely comments up above. So do get them in, get your questions in, and let's get the show underway. Right.
That's definitely better, Joe. It still sounds a bit like an electric toothbrush running in the background, but
That's fine.
It's better for
we
sure.
can deal with that.
Yeah.
Here's hoping it was rain, but that's not arriving, is it? This is how it's going to go then. So we've got 6 thought-provoking questions for the panel, a pair each. Then we will get into our quick-fire round before we reveal the first batch of our 1 to 24 predictions that will be coming out through the week. Trust me, they are going to cause discussions. Now, first question is for you, John Alsop, you lucky man. And your question, now the gents have had advance foresight of these questions. They've had time to prepare, so you will be graded as to what answers you give, because there is no excuse for poor preparation. John, your first question is quite a simple one, really. After narrowly missing out on promotion last season, what now constitutes success for Plymouth Argyle in 2026-2027?
I think it has to be, promotion has to be the aim, obviously, for a club now of our size at this level. I think should have been the aim last year, albeit there were what turned out to be compelling reasons to think that it wouldn't happen this season. We have, in theory, stabilized after that very rocky period. We look like we've got, great continuity in the squad, as I just discussed. Obviously, if we come anywhere close to replicating our form over the back end of last season, then we'll be a shoo-in for the playoffs and maybe even challenge for automatic. So yeah, I think, that's got to be the aim. I think that finishing in the playoffs would likely constitute a successful season, even if we don't then manage to convert that into going up. Obviously, that would be absolutely gutting. It sort of depends, as always with these things, how it goes down, right? If we're in the top 2 and coasting until March, and then suddenly we completely fall away and wilt under the pressure and finish 4th and don't go up, then that, I think, would have to constitute a failure, even if we did, in fact, finish 4th in the table. We had this conversation last season, of course, because there were many people who felt that finishing 8th was a significant underachievement. And I think if you looked at it from the perspective of the beginning of the season, it was. I personally felt that it was more successful than others did because of how we did it. We showed character and nous to turn around what was a really challenging situation and sort of were rampant in the second half of the season. I certainly can't see any world in which we finish outside the playoffs this season, and that's again deemed to be a success. I think we can't, even if it's a season like last season's, then you would start to look at why are we starting so slowly. Obviously, last summer there were all of those mitigating factors that, while they were largely self-imposed, were still mitigating. We were in a period of transition. Now is the time to go for it. And yeah, we'll come on to discussing it later, but I think we've got every chance of doing so.
Good first answer, that, I tell you. I'm glad I sent these through. Sam, you are up next. Tom Cleverley earned plenty of credit for the progress made last season after a slow start to life at Home Park. This was a question you wanted an answer to, if I remember rightly, before Christmas. What tactical evolution would you like to see from him in his second full season in charge?
Good question. Well, I think...
Thank you.
Thank you. I think first and foremost, this is something we saw far more in the final games of the season. I've said on this podcast before, the thing that really impressed me with Port Vale with the early red card when he had to sacrifice an outfield player is that he brought off a CM rather than a striker, because he knew that one goal wasn't going to be enough and we had to keep attacking. That's very, attacking football coded, which I liked a lot. In the Northampton game, when we were 2-0 down to turn it around to 3-2, subs were perfect in that game. The subs all made a really positive difference in that game. Where I would maybe like to see a bit more adaptations, as the question goes, is in finding maybe a bit more of a plan B to a 4-4-2. And he has mentioned about having a plan B to a 4-4-2. And it's just really a question of what that would look like. And I think what it would look like is maybe having a little bit more ability to break down a deep block. Like 2 of the games that maybe cost us getting into the top 6 and 8, although obviously, really, we cost ourselves the top 6 when we were bottom in November. But 2 of the games that we could have managed better in April were Bolton at home and Exeter home. Bolton had 10 men, and Exeter were a very poor team who were just happy to sit deep and counter-attack and rely on their keeper making good saves. I do think there is maybe a possibility in either of those 2 games, as much as I cannot argue with the good work 4-4-2 did for us, that maybe if we'd had the ability to switch to an extra midfielder, could have just maybe broke down their low block a little bit. Hopefully, Bradley Ibrahim's going to have a much better season with injuries than what he had last season. To be fair, the year before at Crawley, he had barely any injuries, so hopefully he'll have a bit more to offer. Maybe Brendan Wiredu with it, as much as he's maybe not the most technical player, maybe Brendan Wiredu with his late runs crashing into the box can come up with a few more important goals like he did at Northampton and at Bradford. Maybe Caleb Roberts will have a bit of a part to play. Maybe even Seb Campbell will have a bit of a part to play. He's had a fantastic pre-season. So I just think that it would be a plan B. And for me, obviously, 3 at the back could be a plan B. Alex Hartridge is maybe much more suited to a back 3 than he is a back 4, maybe. So that would certainly be a viable plan B. We've got a lot of centre-backs and not a lot of full-backs. So, yeah, maybe a plan B and even a plan C. Plan B maybe being the extra midfielder, and plan C if we have a bit of an injury crisis and need to shake it up entirely, or maybe even a game where we need to go a bit more defensive, a bit more counter-attacking, like a Luton away, a Leicester away, maybe even a back 3 for games like that. So that, yeah, it would be slightly tweaking the formation for games that suit it, would be my suggestion.
I am obliged to point out that Wiridu's goal at Northampton was from outside the box, and his goal at Bradford was from a set piece, and therefore in neither instance did he crash into the box.
Yeah, they were separate points, to be honest.
I bet he did at Tavistock. Right. He did at Tavistock.
Yeah,
twice.
As well. It's all the important games. they were. I could have worded that better, but they were separate points. Yes.
The people will be delighted to know that my tuppence isn't really going to be given tonight. This is all about the 3 gents on screen. However, this squad is now screaming 3-4-3/4-3-3 to me. Particularly with the signing of Will Evans, you'd have to think that he would be suited playing on the left side of a front 3. Graham Clark, let's bring you in on a thought-provoking question round. And yours is looking across the current squad. Where do you believe Plymouth Argyle have strengthened best over the summer?
Back 4, easy. Wes Harding, Mitch, Alex Hartridge, together with Russ. Bristol City was the most accomplished back 4 performance I'd seen, probably almost going back to the historic Mark 1 era, where it showed the same level of determination, character, and I thought our back 4 looked really, really good. And as Sam's indicated, with Alex Hartridge, it does give us the option to play a back 3 as well, in a 3-5-2 probably. So without question, I think the defence is organised, notwithstanding, because how many goals did we concede last season, particularly in the first half of the season? So it's something that needed to be done, and promoted teams normally start from the back first, and that's what we've done.
Follow up to that one then, Sam. This is probably just as easy as the last question. Where's the one area of concern in this squad?
Just quickly, by the way, Mr. Hubert popping up in the comments saying that I said Alex Mitchell was better suited to a back 3. I definitely said Alex Hartridge, Ollie. So clean your ears out. Graham's nodding. I did say Alex Hartridge. Thank you very much. So yes, I did not say Alex Mitchell. I do agree Alex Mitchell did play his best football in a back 2, but I didn't say his name, so listen more carefully. Anyway, I will now answer the question. I'm going to maybe a bit of a longer answer to this one. So the exact wording of the question, as I believe you said it, was maybe where are the weaknesses in the squad? Do I see an area for concern? Okay, not concern. I'm not going to spoil the one, the 24s, which are coming later, but I will say at the minute, I'm looking at this. I'm not seeing one area that's screaming out for concern. Actually, maybe I kind of am with the wingers, like I mentioned earlier, but what I'm really seeing is I'm seeing a squad that has every capability of challenging for the top 6. I'm not really at the moment seeing a squad I believe that has capability of challenging for the top 2 unless they hugely overperform. Now, to be clear, I think we could challenge for the top 2 because I think clearly the squad we had in 22-23 wasn't inferior top 2 squad, and we won the league of 101 points of course it could happen. At the minute, I think this is the playoffs, lower end of playoff squad rather than a top 2 squad, in my opinion. I think the wingers, I think what you have to look at it as, the form we had last season from December to May was the second best form, or certainly from January to May, was the second best form in the league after Lincoln. So in theory, if we can keep that form going, we're absolutely capable of top 2. But there's a couple of things there. Firstly, I think that in itself was an overperformance, which, doing it over a whole season is maybe a bit tricky than doing it over half a season. And secondly, being, as I mentioned on last week's pod, I think the thing we're really sleeping on with Tolai is the lack of the loss of the creativity that he brings. He's a chance creator, not just a chance scorer. And I think certainly in a 4-4-2, where there's a little bit more of a gap between the midfield and the strikers, you really need one of the strikers to be a bit creative. I just think there's a few areas where maybe lacking a bit of creativity. Like I say, certainly with the wingers, you've got Curtis and Amici, and at the minute, that's it. Maybe Finn, Asaka coming back. Maybe Sorinola can play there. But I think really Beidou for Owen Dale, I think would have potentially been an upgrade, but obviously Beidou is now injured, so we won't know. So really, what we've essentially got is we've had Will Evans for Tolai, and we've had, as of yet, nobody for Owen Dale. Now, we've had Harvey White for Joe Rawls / Herbie Kane, who I think is certainly an upgrade in reliability, even if not in quality, and maybe even in quality as well, who knows. We've got Alex Hartridge, who's kind of a added player because we've not lost any defenders. Obviously, Alex Mitchell and West Ham.
Replacement for Galloway, Sam.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Sorry, quite right. Fair to pull me up on that. So, yes, Alex Hartridge for Galloway, which I think, again, is at the very minimum an upgrade in reliability, even if not in, quality. And we've got Murphy Cooper and James Storer for Connor Hazard and Luca Ashby-Hammond, which, again, I would certainly agree. Despite my more positive views on Hazard, I certainly agree it's an upgrade as a duo. So I think there's some areas we're weaker, there's some areas where we're stronger. Probably pound for pound at the minute is about equal in terms of squad strength, maybe a bit stronger. So if we're a bit stronger, why am I not predicting us to come top 2? I just think that because we did have top 2 form, and I'm saying we're a bit stronger, I just think that in itself was such a huge overachievement. Do I hand on heart think we're going to do that over 46 games? No, I think it's a top 6 squad. I don't think it's a top 2 squad. And if we come top 2, that just shows how fantastic Tom Cleverley is. I think winger is an area of concern, as I mentioned. Obviously, Evans for Tolai, I do believe is probably a downgrade, as much as I actually did quite publicly go to bat and defend the Will Evans signing on Twitter, because I've said that, like John said, Tolai was a bit of a unicorn, bit of a lightning in a bottle, so we're not going to sign somebody as good as him. I'd love it if we did. Obviously, nobody would love it as much, more than me, if we signed Don Ballard or Jaden Wareham, but that's just not going to happen with our finances. So we're going to spread the Tolai money across 3 or 4 players rather than just on one player, which I think is fine as long as we actually do it. If we can bring in a top quality winger with some of that money, fantastic. If we don't bring in a top quality winger and the only fees, that we've outlaid are on Mitchell and Evans, I think then it sort of becomes the question of could we potentially have reinvested more? But then I know that then we've got the salary cost protocol to think of, in the sense that, yes, even if we can afford to splash out a fee, can we afford their wages? So it's tough. Comment coming up saying I'm wording it as if it was a lucky run. Well, that's certainly not how I intended to word it. So if it came across that way, I apologise. I'm just saying having that huge level of overachievement over 46 games is different. Even if the squad is pound for pound equal strength, stronger, having a huge level of achievement over 46 games is even harder than doing it over 23. So yeah, there's just a couple of areas. Strike force, we are a little weaker, but then again, I did always say last season we had three first choice strikers for a 2 up front system, and obviously 2 and the 3 don't. 3 and the 2 doesn't go. So that I'm not too bothered about, but nonetheless, we are a little weaker striker. Obviously a weaker winger at the moment. Central midfield, I think we're about equal strength, maybe even a bit stronger. I would maybe, if I'm being greedy, I'd just like one more, slightly more creative player in CM. Harvey White's a fantastic game controller, metronome. I haven't quite yet seen from him that defense splitting pass like Herbie Kane had. That's maybe where we're lacking in CM. That player who can just have that Hollywood ball out of nowhere, like Herbie Kane had. I've not quite seen that yet from Harvey White. Maybe it's coming. So I think winger, we definitely need one. Striker, we're a little weaker. CM, we're probably stronger, but lacking that one component. And I would maybe also like a top quality left back, just because I think Jack McKenzie is sadly fast approaching Galloway territories of not able to stay.
Sam, two things to say. When July was out for 10 games, Bim Pepples scored 7 goals.
Yeah, like I said, I think
so that's first. Secondly, defensively, I think we're going to be so much better. And given how many goals we gave away last season, that means more points. And thirdly, and I think this is really important, team spirit, characters. If I was lucky enough to go to the Josh Widdicombe evening where he interviewed the Warnock era and the Sturrock era in particular, and what came through with the players there was team spirit, never say die, never be defeated. And we've signed characters, particularly in Mitch. I think Wes Harding comes into that category as well. And I think from what I can see and hear, our team spirit is excellent. And if there's one thing that carried us through in the 101 season, it was team spirit.
Yeah, I respect that. And I'm not sorry for rambling on a little bit with the answer. I just to kind of round off the answer a little bit. I'm not coming here just to be Mr. Negative and just say, oh, we've not signed well enough, this, that, and the other. I like that. I actually fully get the strategy of spreading the Tolai fee across a few players rather than just on one statement signing. I'm just looking at it at the minute, and I'm seeing a top 6 squad, not a top 2 squad. That's my gut feeling right now, and I hope that I hope that either A, I'm wrong, or B, even if I'm not wrong, they produce top 2 form anyway. Because, like I say, certainly the 101 squad wasn't on paper a top 2 squad. It was the fantastic management and also the team spirit which got them to that. Could the same thing happen again? Maybe so. That is my answer. Sorry, very long one. I apologise.
With all due respect, Sam, there's a reason they were thought-provoking questions. I'm not going to have a go at you for a long-winded answer. Certainly in this round, anyway. Right, John Alsop, you're up next, and this one is a little bit more thought-provoking, so bear with me as I look up to my script. Even in successful seasons, side reach a point where momentum stalls and adversity hits. Well, we know all about that from last year. What do you think will define Argyle's response, and what qualities will separate this time around from previous squads who have fallen short, namely last year?
Yeah, and actually this sort of ties in nicely to a response I wanted to make to Sam's point, and I've seen some people also responding in the comments about the sustainability or lack thereof of the form from the back end of last season. And I think, that was not a small sample size of form, right? That was half a season is a simply enormous sample size of form. And I remember you and others saying this isn't sustainable in like February or March, and it turned out it absolutely was. And I think if that season had continued, I see no reason to believe that we would not have continued to perform like we did and pick up points at roughly that clip. So I don't think it's a question of sustainability at all. I think we proved that form is sustainable. The problem is a new season is a new season. And there's just no guarantee that, with that kind of sharp reset that we're going to be able to pick up what we did before and restart with it. So
that's kind of also what I meant, to be honest. I apologize.
I think it's unlikely that we'll be able to be as good again just in the statistical probability sense. That's not a harsh judgment on the squad. It's just that we were so good that it's not probable that you will be that good again. But all we can do is give ourselves the best chance of being that good again. And I think we pretty much have done that within the parameters of, the financial constraints that we have. We look really, and I think, we didn't do a pod after the Bristol City game, but what I was saying in the group chat was I just thought we looked so organized. Everyone was on the right wavelength. Everybody knew each other's jobs. That was a team that was together, and you contrast that to what we were seeing a year ago, and they were all over the shop and didn't know each other's names really, let alone roles. So we've given ourselves the best possible chance of hitting the ground running and returning to something like the form from the back end of last season. But it is tough, and what we learned under Shuey, and that was obviously a particularly extreme example, given that in the end we needed 90, I think 7 or 8 points to go up that season. I can't remember what Sheffield Wednesday got exactly, 90, 96 or 97, I think. We needed high 90s to go up even in second place, which is almost unheard of, frankly. But even in seasons where it's not the case and a lower total will do you've got to be relentless. You've got to win pretty much every week. And so that's now the challenge, is how do we attack a new season and A, kind of try and get straight into winning form to hit the ground running, but then also B, if it doesn't quite happen straight away, and we've got a tough opening set of fixtures on paper last season. The fixture list really didn't help us, I think, in terms of coming back into this league. Obviously, we're now stronger. Like if we had played Stockport on the opening day of last season, then that would have been very favourable to Stockport and not very favourable to us. Now Stockport are the team that have a change of manager and squad turnover, and we're the ones who look settled. So. I don't think, I'm not saying this is an excuse. I think we should be looking to go out and win these games, and we absolutely can. But it's a tough start. Leicester is early on as well. Wickham away is not going to be a walkover by any means, even if I don't rate them as highly as Sam, and more to come on that. We could very easily lose a couple of games early doors, and it's about how we respond to that. And to answer your question, Joe, I think that the thing that's going to define it is character. I think, I think it's what Graham said. Well, it's two things. It's character, which is what Graham already talked about, and it's tactical flexibility, which is what Sam already talked about. And I would absolutely just like to second his answer to that question. I think that it's all well and good hitting on 4-4-2 as the solution to last season's problems. If teams have gone away and worked out how to nullify us in that formation, or if it turns out that formation just doesn't quite get the best out of the one or two players that we've added to the squad, how are we going to answer those questions? Are we going to continue to be adaptable, or is that adaptability just kind of a one-time thing where we settled on a really strong approach for us, but now how easy is Cleverly going to find it to reinvent that if he needs to? So these are questions of adaptability. As it happens, I think we're going to have a strong season. We'll come on to that, but that's the challenge.
John, it was quite interesting. Again, I refer to Senior Greens, and it was reported on Passotti as well that Derek Adams actually made the point about 4-4-2 and not being predictable, and teams might work us out. And he specifically mentioned a plan B. And then interestingly, Tom in his press conference talked about when he changed to 4-3-3 away at Wigan purposefully. I think, was it 4-0 win, Sam? I think it
3-0.
I think it was a 3-0. So there is some flexibility. I think it is recognised, and it will be needed because we all got our favourite systems and that, but we're going to hit adversity. And one of the things, and I'll say it now for you, Sam, Shuey was able with his finishes coming on as subs to change games and go on and win. And that ability we've got out of the 7 subs allowed on the bench, we've got a fairly strong 5, many of which could be game changers. And that's what happened in the 101 season. And I think we're pretty close to that. So that's another reason why I think we won't be wedded to 4-4-2 every game. It suits us best because everybody knows the system. But when needs must, we'll either go 5-3-2 to secure a win at the back, or go 4-3-3 and try and win it when we're looking for some goals.
I would just say also on the subject of character, just quickly, this was the point I meant to make. Mostly sort of co-sign what Graham said. To expand it a little bit, though, I think it's about having those characters, plural, in the team, in the squad. Clearly, the balance of like senior to junior pros is much, much more appropriate now than it was 12 months ago. And I think that's going to be enormously helpful. Also, though, this squad, and players of all ages therein went through hell last season. It was absolutely horrible, and they came out the other side, and they proved that they could come out the other side. And any time that we had, a sticky patch in the second half of the season, and it wasn't really ever a patch per se, but had 1 or 2 games where we played poorly or the result didn't quite match the performance level or whatever, every single time we bounced back. Every single time. So I think this is a team that is now a squad that is mentally the better for going through what they went through before Christmas, even if obviously we would rather they hadn't.
Before we go on to Sam's final question, I do feel like I need to clear something up here, and that is that there has been a conversation between Superintendent and Monsieur Hubbard in the comments regarding Dan Ellard. We should point out Dan Ellard has not been fired from the Argyle Live Green and White podcast. He's just merely in Australia, and it's very difficult on time zones for him to join us. However, on social media this week, he will be providing us with his 1-24s. I'm not sure if he knows it yet, but he will be before Friday, because that's when his is going to be released. Just thought I had to clear that up.
But obviously his table will be upside down, so you'll have to.
Exactly. Last question then, and it goes to Graham. Sorry, not Sam. Looking ahead to May, then, what story do you want people across the football world to be telling about Plymouth Argyle?
Well, this is a bit of a giveaway. Winning the playoff final.
There you go. He has given something away there. More on that in due course. Now, there are 700 people watching already, which is mind-blowing. So thank you very much. For those of you who missed it earlier on, as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a QR code to our new charity partner for the 2026-2027 season. That's the Children's Hospice South West. For those of you who play FPL, the official fantasy of the Premier League, you can get involved in our mini league this year. There are prizes and all sorts involved. It costs £10 to enter. Every penny of profit from that £10 goes straight to CHSW, and it's one of many things that we are doing across the course of the season to raise much needed funds for such an important charity in our region. Now, let's get on to the fun quick fire round then. These are nice and simple questions. Now, I'm delighted to say, somebody said earlier on there's a script with a wink face. Well, there is now. We do have an actual running order that we are going to stick to. It's amazing. After, 4 or 5 years of doing the pod, we're finally going to have a running order that we're going to stick to, I hope. And I sent this out earlier in the week for the lads to answer on the crib sheet, and luckily, I'm looking at the answers, we actually don't have many duplicates, which is amazing, given we're essentially giving 21 answers to the next 7 questions. So we'll go in clockwise order, so Graham can answer the first one, then John can answer first, second, Sam third, etc. Graham, you're up first. Who will be Plymouth Argyle's player of the season and why?
Harvey White. And despite what Sam's potential reservations, he had a stunning season for Stevenage, really ran the way they played, and in the games that I've seen him, he's very skillful, great left foot, great crosses, great free kicks, and I clearly wouldn't put him in the Graham Carey category, but he certainly reminded me of Herbie Kane as cultured left foot, and I think he's going to be the creative spark that perhaps Sam didn't think we would have.
John, who's going to be the player of the season?
Ben Peppel, assuming he stays fit. Last season, I think he would have had a very, very strong shout for player of the season if he had, done the second half of the season form over the entire thing. Even then, he was so good in the second half of the season, he might have had more of a look in if there hadn't been other outstanding performers who, I think really it was only Mitchell and Talai, I would argue, who sort of maintained that form over the entire season or were, good enough in the first half to justify the sort of adulation in the second. Boateng, you could maybe add to that list, but I think for me it was Mitchell and Talai. And yeah, I think he looks unbelievably hungry. And I think if it turns out that he was not, a flash in the pan in the back end of last season, but that was an improvement, from him, and that was just him clicking in our side, which I believe, certainly hope, but I also believe is the case, then he has everything, needed to be the player of the season this time next year.
Yeah, pie face, we all agree. Sam, who's going to be player of the season?
It's going to be a 20-goal season for Owen Aseni. I'm calling it right now. I'm calling it. He's going to do 20 goals and 10 assists. I'm making a big prediction already for that one. I think Harvey White will be up there, to be clear.
Where's my marker button?
Yeah. I do actually agree with Graham. He'll be a fantastic player, great crosser, great set pieces. I just don't, at the moment, from what I have seen of him, from what I've kind of looked up in the stats about for Stevenage, think he's the Hollywood pass player. But I think he's got a great deal of positive attributes. I think he'll control the game. He'll be the midfield metronome, and he'll get a couple of worldies from outside the box. I think Harvey White will be up there, but I'm going to go Owen Aseni will be the player of the season.
And to be clear to those watching who saw me sort of dive off screen in frustration, this is not an anti-Aseni point at all from me. I actually really like him. This is Sam's new hobby horse. This is the shoey of 26-27. So yes, I could just see it coming like a meteor about to make impact.
John, stay unmuted. which new signing is going to have the biggest impact?
Well, I actually disagreed with one answer that was given on this pod earlier, which is where have we had the biggest improvement in the squad? And Graham said it was easily defence, and I think it's easily the goalkeeping department, actually. And so my answer to this question is Murphy Cooper. Now that, there are some... I think that, I've heard sort of mixed views on him based on his past performances and based on data. I think it's almost impossible to overstate how let down we were by the goalkeeping department last season. Yes, Hazard had some good runs in the side. He also had some really uncharacteristically poor runs, including towards the back end of the season where he made decisive mistakes. I wouldn't say they necessarily were what proved costly in that run-in scenario in terms of us not getting into the playoffs, but they didn't help. And Ashby Hammond, ironically, probably came in and towards the end and did his best performances in an Argyle shirt, but we all saw a lot of what came before. And so, I think I'm very optimistic based on what I've heard and seen of Cooper that he is going to be an upgrade on Hazard's level of performance from last season, if not an upgrade overall on Hazard as a goalkeeper, and that's ultimately what we need. I also think, though, and this is a point I made about Hazard on the pod, I think a few times, is even, put aside the debate about his ability or how reliable he is and all the rest of it, sort of quality-based questions. To me, Hazard was the perfect goalkeeper when he was on form to have in a Miron Muslic-style team, a team that has its backs to the wall, that has two big defenders who are heads on sticks, and is facing a lot of balls into the box, is having to play a low block, because he is very good at staying on his line, staying deep, but when he's called into action, he is, inclined to make a brilliant save. Obviously, he's a big goalkeeper. He fills the goal. I think we have underestimating how important tactically the position of goalkeeper is in modern football. And I think that Murphy Cooper, based on the glimpses we've seen of him in pre-season, is going to play a lot further forward as a starting position. He's going to be a lot more assertive in coming out of his box. And I just highlight one moment from the Bristol City game where he really didn't have a lot to do, but there was that ball over the top that Bristol City played, and he was out like a rabbit out of his goal and cleared the ball away. Hazard obviously has done things like that for us. I don't want to say that was something he never did, but for me, he was not a player who ever looked comfortable coming out of his area and trying to mop things up. I think the Port Vale gaff was sort of the crystallized that to the nth degree. And I think Cooper is going to be, a lot more forward-footed. And given that so much of obviously last season was stylistically across the whole game was a bit of a step back, from Guardiola era kind of pretty passing football. But I still think the goalkeeper is a really important tactical position. It's not just about ability to make saves and what have you. And I think we're going to see actually that he makes a significant, if kind of subtle difference to the way we play football rather than just being the last man. So I think he is going to, make a real impact tonight. I hope it's going to be a good one.
This is where we did get a clash. Sam Down.
Thanks, John. That was a very creative definition of the word quickfire, but it was very insightful, so I don't mind it. I promise I'm not just saying this because of my earlier discourse with Graham, but the answer I genuinely gave was Harvey White, because the way I see this question is, and you can easily answer Alex Mitchell or even Wes Harding, but the way I see this question is who's going to add something we didn't have last season. So obviously converting a loan to a permanent is, in my eyes, not really in the spirit of the question. So the answer I went for is Harvey White, because like I say, I maybe don't think he's got the Graham Carey or even the Adam Randall or the Herbie Kane through ball that I've seen yet, but I think he's got everything else. I think he's controlled, he's metronomic, he's set pieces. I think Stephen, his fan said, were a bit hit and miss. They've been good that I've seen so far. Crossing is there, long shots, like I say, he's definitely going to have one or two goals outside the box. Really positive about him. Was a really good player for Stevenage, and it's a bit of a coup. Maybe more like the kind of player we hoped we'd be signing last summer. We were just, flouting our, financial muscles a little bit and taking the best players from high-performing teams. That's flouting financial muscles. That's mixed metaphors, and that's not quite the right phrase at all. But you know what I mean. So my answer was hard.
Flexing, I think, is what you mean.
Yes, yeah.
While you're unmuted, Sam, are you going to pay George's electricity bill?
I pay a contribution towards it every month.
Graham, was there anything you wanted to add?
No, I came Harvey White, obviously, giving the first answer. So nothing to add for brevity.
Very good. Right, Sam Down, you get the answer first on this one as well. Who is your sleeper in the squad? Who's going to go under the radar?
So I've thought long and hard about this, because the reason I think this is a bit of a tough question is in the age of podcasts like us lot who talk about everything and everything, and everyone's on Twitter and everyone's on free chat, everyone talks about everything. So the idea of a player not really being spoken about much in this age of social media is less applicable than it maybe was 20 years ago. So I had to think hard about this one. And the player I went for is a player who I've actually not always been the most positive about in the past, is Matti Sorinola. And the reason I've gone for Matti Sorinola as the player who I think will go under the radar is because given we're a little bit short in certain areas with injuries, and certainly short in the wide areas, it's easy to forget that when Owen Dale had his bad injury around December and January, the player who played wide left for the early part of our revival was Matti Sorinola. So he can cover wide left, he can cover wide right, he can cover right back, he can cover left back, and players like that are worth their weight in gold to managers, players who can cover a lot of positions. And I think that's what Matti Sorinola is in this 4-4-2 system. He can play either side, and he can play both fullback and winger. I think he is what he is, Sorinola. I think he's a player who's a little bit inconsistent. He's got a mistake in him, to be blunt, but he's a very hard worker. He's got a good cross on him as well. And someone who can cover all four of the kind of wide positions in a 4-4-2 is someone who could be very valuable when we've not got the most squad depth. So I think he'll go under the radar, not necessarily because he'll put in 8 or 9 out of 10 performances and such, but because I just think he'll be someone who can fill in and do a job in 4 positions.
And he's gone a long time without cramp as well.
Yeah.
Graham Clark, who's your sleeper in the squad?
Well, I wouldn't. I think it's under the radar was the question. I think Will Evans has to be the ultimate under the radar signing, because everybody giving their list of wants for players up front, I doubt whether anybody had his name at the top of their list. And yet, when you actually look at it and go deeper into it, you can see why Tom and Derek wanted him so much with the figures and what he gives to the team. So many people, when he signed, so, I think the word was underwhelmed, a familiar word that's always used on Passotti, probably every week. But I think gradually people are understanding why we signed him and what he can give. So for under the radar and sleeper, it will be Will Evans.
John Alsop, if you don't give your answer giving us a Paolo Di Canio impression, I'll be very disappointed.
Oh, well, you've asked for it. So my sleeper is Ali Gawan Wes. Don't know how many year old. Definitely older than 20-year-old. I think Wes Harding, to be clear to those who didn't get it from the Paolo Di Canio reference. If you don't get that reference, you should definitely go and look it up. Type in League One Wes Paolo Di Canio on YouTube after we've finished, obviously, but you won't be disappointed. It's I think Harding is someone who's actually gone under the radar, despite what Sam said, because he's sort of in a category of two with Alex Mitchell, right? A defender who came in on loan last season, and then we got back on a permanent deal in the summer. But obviously Mitchell was the one that everyone was talking about. And I think, rightly so, given how, in my opinion, unbelievable he was for pretty much the whole of last season, but certainly the second part of it. But I think Harding is a really, really canny piece of business. I mean, we've discussed that, I think, on the last pod when we were talking about signing, so I won't go into that again. I think where I see him being sort of under the radar / a sleeper is that we did not see him in his best position last season. We saw him filling in a lot at left back, where in my opinion, he is not great. Not his fault. I think he's otherwise a very versatile player. Certainly he does okay at left back. But I don't think it's a position where it's a particular strength for him. If this season, as I expect, we see a lot more of him at right back or even centre back, if there's injuries to that established 2, or we decide to play a 3, I think we're going to see him as someone who is a really, really good player for this league and not just a kind of serviceable / good player. Added to the mix, obviously, his leadership qualities. He'll be, I imagine, the captain tomorrow night against Exeter. He is the vice captain in the squad, which I think itself was maybe something that caught a few people by surprise when it was announced. And he's been there and done it. He got Rotherham out of this league, I believe. I think he's been promoted at least once from this level, maybe twice or 3 times even. I'm not sure about his trajectory, but I know he's sort of been a player who's bounced between these levels a bit. He's also, and by the way, I've seen Hartridge come up, and I just want to give him a quick mention as well in the comments. Both those players have just an unbelievable long throw, and I think we're going to see those utilised to great effect this season, and Harding is, obviously one of the players who could do that. Hartridge as well. Hartridge, by the way, was nearly going to be my answer to this question, but I decided to go for Harding instead.
John, Alex Hartridge's long throw is so much longer than Wes Harding's.
But Harding's is good.
Sorry, Todd,
Harding-
that's stretching unbelievable. Wes Harding has a decent long throw.
I think it's a very good
Yeah.
long throw.
Has an incredible.
Well, that wasn't the reason for my answer, though. To be clear, the reason for the answer was that he's going to be a very good right back for us, which is why I think he'll start the season.
Partridges are even
Agreed.
better than Suches were. They're genuinely fantastic.
Yeah, incredible.
Probably the only one I've seen can maybe get it as far as Hartridge is all those years ago. Graham Carriarnison is
For Argyle, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was only second. I think it was Hamer of Lincoln in terms of distance, and I think it's no surprise that Tom's gone for the really long throw. What we haven't worked out is how to utilise it, because a couple of times Sam Tickle came, I think, collected it, but I think if he's going to throw it at the penalty spot, we need to get the first flick on and then come in at the back. But I don't think we've really worked out how to get the best out of it yet. Hopefully tomorrow night.
Who knows? Graham, stay ready to go, because you get the next one. Which is the League One away day you're looking forward to most, and why?
AFC Wimbledon, because it's a nice ground, really great fans. I enjoyed my day there, probably the most of any of the away days. And also, we've got a really good record there. But you know, it was the first time I've been to the new ground, but I really rated it. It reminded me a bit of Brentford's ground, the same sort of situation. But I was particularly noticed how the stewards dealt with the disabled Argyle fans and how really good they were. And I thought they as a club, it was exemplary. And so I'm looking forward to going on the tram and seeing them again.
John Alsop, your answer is?
Yeah, also just quickly, Wimbledon, I don't think are going to be in the same league as us for long, but we'll come on to that with the 124s, but I think there might be some consensus there as well. I'm going to go for the Kenny Luton away. I think for my money, that is one of the best away days in the country, probably the best that remains in our league. Incredible little ground, unbelievably tin-pot, but absolutely class. 2 bars underneath the stand, both of which are excellent. And going there and winning last season with a full away end is just incredible, Lim. So it's it's Good Friday, I think, as well. So proper Easter weekend fair as well. Yeah, great one for me, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
There won't be many opposition fans doing these season previews that looks forward to Luton away, but there we go. Argyle life always.
How can you not? It's proper. It's like modern football is all your Spurses, which is plastic glasses that fill up from the bottom and being told to take your seats 10 minutes before, like you're at the opera. No, football should be played at grounds like Kenilworth Road exclusively.
I'm pretty sure Spurs is the only ground I've been to that does either of those things. Like, I get what you're saying about Luton, and I also love it, but Spurs is
fine. Okay, well at least Spurs' ground is nice. Then let me say. Yeah. Modern football is like going out to a ring road outside of Colchester or Shrewsbury and sitting in a flat pack IKEA stadium that was put up 5 minutes ago. Come on, you can't hate Kenilworth Road if you go to grounds like that.
And also, it's being put on the corner, which it's a trend that I've complained about on here many times. I don't like. I like away fans being behind the goal. I hope Argyle never become one of those clubs that just shove away fans on the corner. It's the growing trend that I detest.
And also with Kenilworth Road, I actually bought my tickets for that game in person at the box office at Home Park, and they asked where I wanted to sit. And it's like one of the grounds where the answer to that question is important if you want to see any of the game. A lot of these grounds you just can say, "Oh, I'll go anywhere" because it's the same view from everywhere, basically. But no, if you get in the wrong place at Kenilworth Road, then you won't watch the game. So yeah, great, it's great. I love it.
Yeah, been once, won't be going back. Sam Down, your answer.
My answer is the best away day pub in England, Doncaster away. Absolutely elite place. For those who may have heard me ramble on about this before, they have this amazing pub. I'm not going to tell you the name of it. You'll have to find it yourselves. It's in the town. That's the only clue I'll give. They have where they have like a DJ set. They have a nice outdoor area as well. We can obviously go in there maybe in the warmer weather, which we are going to be on September the 5th. They have like a big dance floor area. Bear in mind, it's a pub in the middle of the day. They have a DJ come in and they sort of close the curtains, pull down the blinds, and basically almost turn it into like a nightclub in the daytime. There's a DJ, there's cheesy music playing. It's very affordable booze as well. We struck a deal with them in 2022. Couldn't do this now with inflation, where we may have got 153 Jaeger bombs for 150 quid to share amongst the reveling Argyle fans. I absolutely love that pub in Doncaster, and it's become my favourite away game as a result of it. It doesn't help that Oh, go on, then you've twisted my arm. How can you plug a pub and not say the name? It's the Old Jaws Courtyard. It's I wanted to keep it as a bit of a mystic, well-kept secret, but no, you make a fair point, Accidental Pilgrim. It's the Old Jaws Courtyard. And yeah, that was also where I had my green hair sprayed. You are right. It's a cracking little gaff. And that also helps that the 2 times I've been to that pub and then went on to the game, we've won both of them. Both of them went behind in the first 5 minutes as well in 2022 and 2025, and went on to win 3-1 and then 5-1. Fantastic place.
And funnily enough, the Old George Courtyard is where Sam's going to be sleeping tonight if he doesn't turn the light off.
Oh, brilliant. Right, John, I'll stop. You can have the first question next. And that one is, what is your bold prediction for Argyle this season? You can be as outrageous as you like.
It is that we will finish above the Giants of Sheffield Wednesday, but I'm not going to elaborate on that until we go to the 124s. But that is my outrageous shout.
Yeah, don't worry. There are plenty of.
Oh, I don't think it's going to be. It's not going to be Wednesday fans coming after me when they see my 124s. There'll be another club that will have their fans in my comments. I think it won't be them for a change.
Sam down.
This one sounds like it's maybe not that controversial, but there is a chance it could be proven wrong by the time we next go on air. So I think that might maybe it is controversial, and that is that Argyle will not drop into the bottom half all season. I think we'll beat Stockport, and I think we've got enough of a potential enough, decent enough games that we will stay in the top half. And what I can kind of see this season being is a bit like the year we came 7th, the 21-22 season, when Lowe left halfway through, and we got 80 points and we missed out on the playoffs. But relegation that year was some really sort of poor quality teams. There was a kind of a gaping sort of chasm between the top and the bottom half, and I think it could be a similar season. When I was doing my 1-24s, there was like a lot of teams I comfortably top half, and a lot who I said bottom. That's the way I do it. I divide it into the rough area, and then I decide who's going to come on top within that area. And there were barely any teams who I thought they're going to be around the middle-ish of the league. They were all teams who I thought I really like the look of them, or I don't so much like the look of them. There's only about maybe 3 or 4 who fell into the category of I can see it going either way. Of which Stockport are one, funnily enough, and we played them opening day. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's my bold prediction. We will win opening day, and we will not drop into the bottom half all season. But that could be wrong by the time we're next on air, so we'll see.
Graham Clark, you're going to give something else away now in a minute, aren't you?
Well, 3 times playoff final winners. Nothing more to say.
Exactly. Sam Down. This is a bit of a fun one. Which Argyle player from the current squad would you least like to come up against in a 5-a-side game, and why?
Well, for me, it's any of them, because if you've seen me play football or move or try and use hand-eye coordination in any way, you'll see why I've said that. But let's assume I'm a human who doesn't have dyspraxia and has vaguely functioning limbs. I'm allowed to say that because I have it. My answer would be Xavier Amici. He is the ultimate 5-a-side or 6-a-side player. Like technical, good in tight spaces, has explosive bursts of pace, even if he's not, he's not a long distance runner, but he has explosive bursts of pace, and he's really good in tight spaces. Amici is the kind of player who would absolutely thrive in 5 or 6-a-side, probably like more than anyone else. Like in years to come in the future, when football goes the way of cricket and it sort of becomes like T20ized, and I'm an old man, and there's the 6-a-side league that gets played in tandem with the 11-a-side in that weird alternative future that I'm devising. Players like Amici would be perfect 6-a-side players.
Graham Clark?
Bim Peppel. How the hell do you get the ball off him? Physically, nobody's going to dominate him. And I just can't see any way that you could play against him in that sort of small pitch scenario.
John Alsop?
I play as a striker in 5-a-side, and I think Alex Mitchell would wipe the floor with me in every relevant way. So I'll say Alex Mitchell. I actually don't really like Sam shout of Amici, by the way, for this. I think Amici is a player who struggles a bit in tight spaces. Like I think when he gets players crowded around him, he struggles to. I don't think that's where his best attributes come out. I think it's when he has a bit more time and space. So I actually don't really like that shout. Otherwise, but obviously, if I came up against him in actual five-a-side, he would kill me also because they all would. So yeah, but I'll say Mitchell.
Last but not least, because the 1 to 24s are incoming, Graham Clark, finish the sentence. The 2026-27 season will be remembered as the season
as we went back into the championship.
There we go. Fourth time he may have.
Fourth time. Consistency rules. Unusual, Sam, isn't it? Really?
Is it me? Having said that, we'll finish above Sheffield Wednesday in the league. This season will be remembered as the season that we lose to Sheffield Wednesday at Wembley in the playoff final. Because I just feel like that's something that's coming down the track for me personally.
I would deactivate your Twitter if that happens. Sam down.
The 2026-2027 season will be remembered as the year where we got new majority owners. We competed in the postseason playoffs for the first time in over a decade. And this is totally unplanned. I've genuinely got us to face Sheffield Wednesday in the semi-finals because I've got, spoiler alert, I've got them fourth and us fifth. So I've genuinely got us to play them. And the banner at the side of the screen appears to have disappeared, Joe. But Argyle will get a new owner, we'll make the playoffs, and we'll lose to Sheffield Wednesday in the playoff semi-final. That was genuinely unplanned from John's prediction.
The banner has disappeared because it is 1 to 24 time. So how this is going to work, across the course of the week, we are going to be revealing one every day of our 1 to 24s. Now, it'd be remiss of us not to produce the three gentlemen in front of us, their 1 to 24 tonight. These will be the first three, and then every day this week, building up to Saturday's home game against Stockport County, on our social media, you will get another member of the Argyle Lives families 1 to 24 for you all to discuss. So here we go. We are going to show the 1 to 24s on screen, and it is over to the person who is shown to justify some of their selections, and then any debate can ensue before we move on. Obviously, before we go any further, for the audio listeners, I will pick out the key points in the 1 to 24s, but you will be able to see them on Argyle Life social media at the end of tonight's live stream. Sam will be
like having our good friendly Argyle analyst back, isn't it? Showing stuff on the screen.
It is. Sam will be getting these after the stream to post live onto X and Facebook and Instagram and things for audio listeners to see for themselves. So here we go. We're going to start off with Graham Clark's 1 to 24. There it is. And for those of you who are not looking at the screen at the moment, Graham has got Sheffield Wednesday to be League One champions, promoted automatically Luton Town, playoff places 3rd Plymouth Argyle, 4th Leicester City, 5th Huddersfield Town, and in 6th Wycombe Wanderers. MK Dons will do best of the promoted League 2 teams. Graham's got them in 7th. He has got last season's surprise package Bradford City down in 9th. He has got Stevenage, who pipped Argyle and Luton to the playoffs, down in 14th. Oxford look like they're going to struggle in 15th. And the 4 relegated sides from Graham's 1 to 24s are Barnsley, Cambridge, Wimbledon and Burton Albion, finishing 24th. Over to you, Graham Clark, to explain your rationale.
I think the bottom 4 will be probably very similar to many others, so I'm not going to devote too much time. Burton seem to have gone for a Burton. I mean, they do seem a club in trouble. AFC Wimbledon just stayed up. Great club, love them to survive, but I'm not sure. Cambridge and Barnsley, I think Barnsley have halved their playing budget, seem to club in sort of crisis, so they would be at the bottom. I think Bromley are just going to be good enough to escape. The playoff places, Argyle, Leicester, I think won't do as well as they think they will. It takes time to adjust to League One football as many Championship sides that have got relegated have, but they have got money, and if they're prepared to spend over 3 million on a National League player, then they might bear to buy their way into the promotion places. Huddersfield have spent a fortune. Sooner or later, the quality of players are going to show. Wycombe Wanderers, well, it's right up your street, Joe, your favourite Mickey Duff. They've spent some money. I think they, despite their keeper acquisitions, which don't seem to have started off too well, will be there or thereabouts. Argyle, I just sense, are just going to miss out. And Luton got quality, still got some good players. And Sheffield Wednesday, I think they'll start off a bit iffy, but that Hillsborough Stadium is one hell of a fortress when it's all going one way. And I think they've got, with Barry Bannon going back, I just think they're going to be there or thereabouts. I think it's going to be really close. I mean, it's going to be another sort of 101 season where the top 3 or 4 are going to be vying all the way up, and we just might miss out.
Does anybody want to challenge Graham on any of his selections before we move on?
Joe, why don't you, if you want to put mine up, I can challenge him, because I think the challenges I have would be answered by my table. It might be easier to do it that way.
Sounds good to me. John Alsop then. This is what John has got for audio listeners. Luton Town as champions. Leicester City as the other automatically promoted side. He's got Plymouth Argyle in 3rd, same as Graham Clark. Bradford City 4th. Sheffield Wednesday 5th. And MK Dons, promoted from League 2 last year, into 6th place. Blackpool, Stockport and Wigan Athletic, I should say, all miss out. Huddersfield down to 11th. Wycombe down to 12th. And the 4 relegated sides, Oxford United, Barnsley, Peterborough United and AFC Wimbledon bottom. I would suggest that the Oxford United selection is the one that's going to get people talking.
Yeah, although I saw that I think Gab Sutton has them to go down as well, a lower league pundit and I believe friend of the show. And I think Graham obviously had Oxford quite low down. I guess I'll start down there and then move up to Argyle's end. I think that Oxford are really hard to tell, and I don't make this prediction with a ton of certainty. Their first 11, as it stands, is still very good on paper. It's pretty much the team that went down from the Championship last year with a couple of players who were on loan or who were out of contract having departed, but still some very good players in there. But they're a mess. I mean, they look like an absolute basket case. They've got a transfer embargo. The squad, beyond that first 11, looks incredibly threadbare. From what I've heard about the new chairman and the situation with the owner, it just seems very bleak. And I think that we saw last season how easy it is to come down from the Championship as not, a massive club with huge unlimited resources and get sucked into that relegation battle. And the more I think about it, I don't think there was anything inevitable about us getting out of that last season. It was a huge testament to good decisions that were made. I think there's an alternate universe out there in which we just continue to spiral and went down without much of a fight. So, I like to make some sort of punchy predictions in these Rods 24s every year, and that's my one for this level. Barnsley and Peterborough might surprise people too. I just feel like they're both clubs that are sort of circling the drain a little bit, and again, it doesn't take a lot to get sucked in. I thought Peterborough, bar that one really good run after Williams came in, were desperately poor last season. And in fact, actually nearly went down a bit under the radar. At Barnsley, I saw someone commenting earlier about Stendhal being good. Stendhal did well there, but like in the late 2010s, I think the game has moved on a huge amount. And I think just going back to a former manager out of nostalgia betrays a desperation to me. And I don't like their transfer business. Graham alluded to the fact they've cut their budget. I think you saw Rotherham kind of get sucked down from being a club that competed at the top end of this league and was a yo-yo club with the Championship to one that's now in League 2 because of poor decisions. And Barnsley look like an example of a club that may be following a similar trajectory. To go up towards the top end then. So Sam mentioned how he thought there was, a sharp divide roughly in the middle of the league between teams he liked the look of and teams he didn't like the look of. I actually really honestly had a very hard time with everyone below the teams I have in the top six. Sorry. There are things I really don't like about all of them. Blackpool, I have in 7th. That might surprise some people, but And again, I wouldn't surprise me if we sit here in a year's time and they finish 14th. Or even lower. I just think Everett at this level is an operator who knows how to get teams into the playoffs, and it wouldn't surprise me given how they finished last season, seemingly having turned a corner on their poor form. Their business has been okay. It wouldn't surprise me if they're in the playoff hunt. You then have Stockport, who obviously, sort of perennial playoff team of the last couple of years, but they're in a period of transition. Wigan, I've got a lot higher than Graham had. I think that Gary Caldwell did an outstanding job after getting appointed, and I think that they have, some decent players there, and I think with just a bit of defensive solidity, we've seen what a team like Stevenage could do, last season if you can just sort of get on the right side of those 1-0 wins. By the way, actually, just quickly, I have Stevenage in 20th, which is a huge drop-off. I think it's then easy to get on the wrong side of those 1-0 scorelines as well, and I just worry about them a little bit with a couple of losses they've had. Argyle, I have us in third. Same logic as Graham. I think it's going to be, having said that, I don't really like too many teams below the top six. I think the top six, with the possible exception of MK Dons, who I think might only just sneak in, looks really, really strong. Obviously, Leicester coming down with a huge budget. And it's not like Leicester are coming down with a team of prima donnas who aren't interested. They've signed Connor Chaplin. They've signed Wes Burns, players who I think are too good for this level, but also know what this level is about. By all accounts, they've got some outstanding young talent as well. I think there are question marks about Russell Martin. He's not done a particularly good job anywhere for a long time. That being said, I don't think League One is the toughest league in the world. So I think if he's, going to rediscover what made him a really exciting managerial talent, it could be at this level with that kind of squad. And again, Sheffield Wednesday, I have them in fifth, but again, I think they'll probably be, I sort of agree with Graham, but on steroids a little bit. I think they'll have a really poor start because losing is a habit. And I think that they will take time to find their feet with pretty much an entire reinvention, but I then could see them really kind of motoring. I think we have a Sheffield Wednesday fan in the comments saying the manager needs to go. I actually also would not be surprised if Henrik Pedersen is ousted pretty quickly after a poor start, and then Challoner or someone goes in who is a better manager and has them climbing the league. Got Bradford in the playoffs. Someone said in the comments they were very good last season, and they've recruited probably the best of any team in the league. Got Leicester to win it because I just think Luton to win it just because I think the way they finished last season was brilliant. Final word, I've got Huddersfield and Wycombe down in mid-table. I could be made to look silly with those two because they're clubs that have the resources to do better, but I'm not impressed with Wycombe's recruitment. They've signed Hazard from us, which, as discussed, I'm not losing a ton of sleep over. And despite having loads of money, they seem to have not really bought anyone else, which is kind of bizarre. And they weren't great last season, so I don't really see why they would be so good this season. And finally, Huddersfield. I need to see evidence with Huddersfield that they're not a total mess, because so far, manager after manager after manager, including managers who are very competent, like Duff, are going in there and either failing or being deemed to fail in the eyes of the powers that be there. For the first time in a few windows, I don't think they've had a good transfer window. I think the biggest signing has been Ashley Fletcher, who I think is washed up personally. And their new head coach is someone I've never heard of, which isn't to say that they won't be good, but it's hard to sit here and say, I really believe they're in strong hands. So yeah, they've got talented players. They're a big club for this level. I could be made to look silly by that one, but I feel like I need to see some evidence of that, which is why I have them mid-table.
I think, as Superintendent says, you've argued your points quite well there, John. I must admit, mine 1 to 24, I think I've got it programmed down to come tomorrow. I think my Sheffield Wednesday prediction is purely based on the fact they see sense and get rid of Henrik Pedersen pretty early. Because I have a pretty dim view of what he was able to achieve last year. I understand they had difficulties, but I mean, any decent manager just tells them to shut the door, and they just kept getting shipped every week. So.
And also they do have the Stockport head of football, right? He did go there, didn't he? That happened.
Yeah, Simon Williams, who pretty much got Stockport from mid-table National League to top end of League One, who was their head of football, and actually then got promoted to their chief executive. He was one of the names who I'd heard a little whisper that we were looking at to replace Neil Dewslip in the 5-month search for director of football, and I think they promoted him to chief executive, and then he left about a year later at the end of last season to go to Sheffield Wednesday in a similar role. So them appointing Challoner, who's left and not gone anywhere, is just the most obvious.
Yeah, I agree.
Ever, and it only won't if someone else gets it.
I still think they'll have to adjust to this league. They won in the cup. They won on the final day of last season and celebrated like they won the Champions League after getting 0 points. It's really, really tough to go from being a total mess who lose almost literally every single week to being a winning machine, even if you change the personnel and the vibe. I could be wrong. Again, I don't think this league is very good this year, so it could just be the case that Wednesday just have better players than other teams and they're able to quickly hit the ground running. I wouldn't rule it out at all, but I tend to agree with Graham that they'll have an early wobble, and I think it mimight be a bit more pronounced or take a bit longer to arrest than he does, which is why I don't see them making the top two. Look, yeah, again, with us, I actually didn't really discuss us too much. I feel like I just have a sort of sense that we'll just miss out. It's not really based on anything in particular. Like, I could see us finishing above Leicester potentially. I could also see us finishing above Luton. It wouldn't surprise me. Equally, it could be we finish above those two and two others finish above us. That top five seems quite fluid to me. I just think we'll hit a little bump somewhere, and it might in a season that might require a high points total to go up. It might just cost us.
Are you sitting comfortably? Because there's only one more 1 to 24 to come your way. Sam Downs 1 to 24 is as follows. Leicester City are the champions. Luton Town are promoted automatically. The playoff four, according to Sam Down, are Bradford City, Sheffield Wednesday, Plymouth Argyle and Wycombe Wanderers. Argyle down in 5th. MK Dons miss out in 7th. Huddersfield in 8th. Different to the two other people on the pod. Barnsley 9th, which I'm sure will be a talking point in a minute. Stockport 10th. Blackpool 11th. Looking down to the bottom end of the table, AFC Wimbledon 24th. Mansfield Town 23rd. That will need some explaining. Peterborough United 22nd. Burton Albion 21st. Cambridge and Oxford just survive. And Doncaster not far above them. Sam Down, your justification cause begins.
Yeah, I think there's probably 3 that I'm going to proactively justify, just purely because they're the most maybe big calls and maybe the most distinct from certainly the other 2 who've put their predictions in. Thank you, Ollie, as ever, for that comment. I'm going to go, Wycombe. I am, Connor Hazard is maybe the one we'll always disagree on, me as opposed to John and Graham, but I'm generally a lot more positive about their recruitment than most. I think so. I've just got the list of who they've signed here now. They've got Steve Cook dropped into League One. I think he'll be very much still be a very good defender at League One level. Corley Woodrow from Luton.
Very quickly, what is he now? 44, 45?
He's only 35. He's not that old. He's not. He's 30. Yeah, he's on the older side. But for League One, I think but it's a bit less pace than the strikers. I still think he can do a good job. Be a good leader. Corley Woodrow, who did have, by all accounts, a pretty quiet season for Luton, didn't really do a lot, but who, if you can get the right tune out of him,
wasn't Corley Woodrow on loan at Wycombe last year? Didn't he score against us in the FA Cup? Or am I dreaming that?
No, you're right. Yes, you're right. You are right. Sorry, yeah, you are right. My apologies. I think I so had him as part of how Luton were going to play. I was surprised when they loaned him out in my early Luton predictions. But sorry. So yeah, Corley Woodrow, I still think could be a decent player for League One level. Clearly, that was a oversight in my predictions. It's exactly how he played last season. But yeah, Corley Woodrow, I think will be a decent player for League One level. Going forward, going back to the Lincoln, I'm off my stride there. The Wycombe signing, sorry. They brought in 2 young lads, so I think they've both had decent loans elsewhere. I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about them, but they brought in Emre Tezgel, who had a good loan at Crewe, got last season as I think kind of a wide forward, got 10 goals from 31 games. And they brought in a young lad called Sam Parker from Swansea, who's only 20, but has already played for them a handful of times in the Championship and loaning him out for regular football. And I think, maybe this goes slightly against my argument that Argyle won't sustain their second place form. But if you look at Wycombe's form under Michael Duff, it was certainly a lot closer to playoff form. I think they've strengthened their squad a little bit. I think they've got a good manager for League One level, Joe. You'll be pleased to hear me say that. I'm sure you will. And they've got really rich owners as well. So I think part of doing the Under-24s isn't just making decisions right on the squad now. You kind of have to proactively predict what decisions clubs are going to make, what signings they're going to make. And with their owners, I think they are the kind of club who, if they're hovering around the playoffs in January, could have a good January. So that's my justification for Wycombe. Barnsley is a little bit more of a shot in the dark. I do think that having them to go down is a controversial one. I think probably the median prediction to Barnsley is probably somewhere between mine and everyone else's. I think a lot of people have them around the 13th to 15th range. So we've actually kind of all gone outliers with Barnsley. my feeling on Barnsley is, yes, the game's moved on, but it's kind of moved in a more counter-attack, high-pressing, set-piece direction, which is actually what Daniel Stendel is all about, or certainly was all about. So I think he can really thrive in that. I do think, obviously, as Ollie, our resident wind-up merchant, said in the comments, they've got Cleary, who they can sell. Reyes Cleary, fantastic player, who will either be very good for them, or if they do end up selling him, they can maybe reinvest the fee. I don't know. And the other thing Stendel did well in his previous spell with Barnsley.
Sam, very quickly, I worry with Barnsley where the goals are coming from.
I see that, but I see that, and maybe they will have maybe they will have a bit of trouble in that area. But I think they'll be a good defensive team, like they were under Stendel before. And I think they've signed a lot of young players who could go well at them. So my other big one was Mansfield. I just think with Mansfield, it's a kind of maybe. See, their fans will be fuming because genuinely, two of the clubs who I predicted to go down last season who didn't go down last year were Burton and Mansfield. And I've got them both to go down again. So maybe their fans will just be absolutely tearing me to shreds on Twitter if I put this up and they don't go down again this year. It'd be two in a row. But I don't know. I think with Mansfield, it's kind of a thing of you could only defy gravity for so long. Their squad on paper is really not all that good. Their best player has just signed, probably their best player, or one of their best players, has just signed for Plymouth Argyle, and Will Evans, who's critical to the high intensity way in which they play. I think Nigel Clough has done a very good job at Mansfield. I've never really rated him that hugely. I think he kind of did quite a middling, mediocre job at Derby. I think he did a pretty middling, mediocre job at Sheffield United, but he's done very well at Mansfield. I just think this is maybe the year that their kind of gravity comes to hit them a little bit, and they get sucked down into the relegation fight. And also with Mansfield, the other thing I'd say is I'm not a massive fan of their business either. They brought in, to be fair, Michael Smith looks a good signing. Or decent signing. I'll give them that. I think they've really replaced with old age. David McGoldrick, who's 38, and Michael Smith, who's, to be fair, only 34, so not that old. But for a team that relies on quite a lot of high intensity, I just don't really think that Mansfield are going to be up to much this season. Final call out from Renkers, who asked you about Peterborough. I just think Peterborough, maybe I've overweighted structural factors a bit. I think Luke Williams is a manager who has got form for being very hot and cold as a manager. He's got fantastic runs, he's got terrible runs. They nearly got sucked into the relegation fight again last season. Obviously, to be fair, Harry Leonard had that very bad injury, didn't he, last season? Which obviously, you could maybe argue if they'd kept Harry Leonard fit, they'd have been nowhere near the relegation zone. And I think that's a fair argument. Obviously, Harry Leonard had that awful head injury or facial injury that he picked up in the game against Argyle. But even prior to obviously that fluke injury, Harry Leonard is a player who struggled with injuries more generally. He's a player who's had knee injuries, various other injuries, back injuries, I think, as well. So he's not necessarily to be relied on for fitness. Obviously, the injury he picked up against us was just a fluke incident. But even aside that, he's not the most fit player in the world, not the most reliable player in the world. And I just think Darren McAntony is scaling back his investment in Peterborough a little bit. And I think if it goes wrong, it could be hard for them to address the slide. I'm not 100% sold on Luke Williams. I'm not 100% sold on their squad, and they do have some talented players. And I'm not 100% sold that their owner is as mentally checked in as he would have been. So I think Peterborough, it is a controversial one, but I can just see this being the
But Sam, is it that controversial? Didn't they stay up on the final day, technically, or the day before the final day last season? They're quite a big club for this level.
They're kind of circling the drain a bit, aren't they, Peterborough?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's controversial based on last season. And the other thing Peterborough, for me, if you don't mind me just jumping in quickly, that I didn't say before, is that they're so reliant on player trading, right? Like their whole success has been built on nabbing kind of a few young stars from non-league or lower down the pyramid, certainly, molding those into incredible young players who are better than the level, and then selling them on for a profit. And they've just done it again with one of the Lisby brothers, and it's Kyrell Lisby, son, of course, of Charlton legend Kevin Lisby, for those old enough to remember. He's gone to, I think, where has he gone? Millwall in the Championship. So, at some point, I think, as we have learned, you're not just guaranteed to have a good summer of recruitment. Like this is a model that does not work 100% of the time. And looking at their business for this summer, I mean, the player they've signed as a left winger, so I guess the Lisby replacement is Awura Edwards from Colchester, who I believe we were linked with this time last year or at some point in fairly recent memory. And something I read or listened to, I apologize if this is unfair on him, suggested since then he did not have a great season for Colchester in League Two. I don't think this is like their next gem from non-league necessarily. Look, I could be wrong. It might be that he slots into the system and does really well. He's obviously got some sort of potential to be linked with us in other clubs. But I'm not convinced that this round of recruitment looks like they've kind of recaptured some of the magic from before. I guess the magic of some of that recruitment was that it was hard to tell that it was magic until it worked. So maybe that'll occur again. But some of these players they've signed are a little bit more known quantities. They've also lost Archie Collins. Not really sure what happened there, but he left and hasn't signed for anyone. But I suspect he wasn't released because he's
he put in a transfer request, I think, in the summer window of last year, or possibly January, or maybe even both. I think it was maybe a personal reasons. Didn't really enjoy living there. Well, you know what then? I know that it's not the area we most need, but blimey, if he's still a free agent, we could do a lot worse. He's a good creative midfielder.
Did I read that he was training with Exeter earlier in pre-season?
Well, he played. He used to play for them, didn't he? I think that's the kind of old thing of giving a former player with connections. I mean, he's far too good for League Two. He was one of Peterborough's better players last season, even in League One by all accounts. So, yeah, I mean, look, CM is not really where we most need players at all. But if we can find some wiggle room within the salary cost management protocols for Archie Collins as a extra midfielder, maybe even if it means one of the two backup lads departing of Ibrahim and Wiradou, then I think that would certainly be an upgrade in that regard for sure.
Sam, just very quickly, I was remiss of me not to ask one of the two lads earlier about this, but I've got your prediction on the screen. You've got Bromley in 14th. Bromley, who were quite magnificent in League Two last year. One of the good things about Bromley is their home form. Is that based on them continuing that this season? Yes, it is very much based on that, and I worry if we're in a position where we need to go there needing a win for automatic promotion or for the playoffs or whatever on the final day of the season, because we're going to Bromley on the final day. It's a mixture of a lot of things. It's a mixture of vibes, in the sense of just they're a promoted team riding the crest of a wave. I think they'll have a good start. They'll be fearless. Like even that year when Morecambe went up into League One, and they were pretty much bottom of everyone's 1 to 24. So they were like top half going into, or top 10 even going into like October, November, before they did have a big drop off. But I just think Bromley have got that potential. Like under the radar as well, I think good recruitment for Bromley. It's certainly good recruitment for a team looking to stay up. Not necessarily, great recruitment for maybe a team looking to playoffs, but that's not what they are. They signed Camille Conte from Bristol Rovers, who I think even we were linked with somewhat. They've signed Victor Adebayo, who I think could be a really good centre forward for a lower mid-table aspiring towards maybe mid-table team. They've kept the squad together from last season. Michael Cheek, I think, is obviously their talisman, and I think just again the power of vibes, all the confidence in the world, absolutely loving life at Bromley. But the main man breaking into EFL, scoring goals. It's the mixture of really good vibes, team spirit, a club riding the crest of a wave, mixed with like under the radar, quietly good recruitment, mixed with it being a really tough place to go, is why I have Bromley up towards mid-table.
It wouldn't surprise me if they have the season that AFC Wimbledon had last season, or indeed that 21-22 when Wimbledon basically had the same season in League One twice, except one time they did actually go down, and then the other time they stayed up by the skin of their teeth. But wouldn't surprise me if they're a breath of fresh air for like 3 months and then find it really hard to win a game after Christmas, but do just manage to stay up. So I wouldn't have them as high as 14th, but I do think they'll stay up.
Yeah, the vibes I get off them is very much Argyle's first season back in the Championship. They're just going to ride that momentum wave. One thing I am confident of is Andy Woodman is not going to climb into a helicopter before Christmas and leave everything burning to a wreck behind him. That's the end of.
Well, Joe, if he loves Bromley, then he will do that.
He will. Yeah, very true. Let's bring everybody back together. One of the starred comments is JB Janabay. Bloody hell, when is the rest of the pod doing their 1 to 24s? Need some PAFC belief. Well, 2 of the 3 had Argyle in 3rd. I'm not sure what more belief you needed.
And promoted. And promoted.
Graham has them promoted, and John saying there's every chance they're going to finish second or maybe even top. So, who knows? As
Yeah,
for
no,
the
to be
rest of the
clear,
ones, go on, John.
To be clear, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we win the league. I wouldn't be stunned. Whereas I would have been stunned at the beginning of 22-23 if you'd said we were going to win the league. Maybe not stunned, but I would have been surprised. I wouldn't be so particularly surprised if we come out on top. I think we look a good unit.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, just quickly, Joe, I think it can be easy to sort of like fixate on the problems that we have. But if you doing research for these 1-24s, I would recommend, even if you're not doing it competitively with your mates, which is a fun thing to do, and we do it every year with me and Sam and a couple of others. But if you just go through the act of trying to put one of these together, you have to do a bit of research into all the other clubs. And like most of the clubs in the league have significantly bigger issues than we do. I'd say us and Luton look settled, in good shape. Leicester and Wednesday, I think, will be up there because I think they've signed well and they just have, controversially in Wednesday's case, and this maybe will be something we'll discuss at some point on the pod, the financial firepower to blow other teams out of the water. But there are huge question marks over both. They are both on a sharp downward trajectory that could easily have a hangover like we saw with us last season. It's not, So I think I would rather be us than almost anyone else.
Yeah,
right here, right now.
I don't disagree with that at all. In terms of when are the rest of the 1-24s coming out, so tomorrow mine will be released. Tuesday will be Adam Price. Wednesday, Aaron Hocking. Thursday, Finley Allen. And on Friday, which will be, Saturday morning to him, Dan Ellard, and they will be upside down and arriving on the back of a boomerang. So that's the 1-24s done for tonight's podcast. Now, earlier on today, Plymouth Argyle women played their final pre-season friendly. I believe that's right. Not that Plymouth Argyle would tell us, because there's radio silence on the women's team this summer for some reason. But they went down 1-0 to a very youthful Swansea City side. We will have a preview of the women's team season on Tuesday night. We will look forward to their season because it gets underway next weekend, and we will discuss it on Tuesday night when we reconvene for the post-Exeter podcast. Now, if you're not aware, the competitive football gets underway tomorrow. It's round one of the Carabao Cup, the League Cup, the Carling Cup, whatever you want to call it. It's at Home Park. It's an 8 p.m. kickoff, full house, and it's Exeter City. You couldn't write the script. Third time in 12 months that we are playing the noisy neighbours. It's going to be a raucous atmosphere inside Home Park. Sky Sports are in town. I'm sure Gary Weaver is delighted at the poetry notes he will be writing for the game, providing he's on commentary. But Sam Down, is this the best possible first round tie or the worst possible first round tie?
Well, the worst would be Exeter away. So I'm glad it's not that. Look, they've lost most of their best players, with one very obvious exception who we'll maybe talk about in a bit more detail in a minute. They're in financial disarray. Their manager's won one game since taking over at the club. They're in financial hardship. There's every opportunity to start off the season with good vibes and a good win. If we get an early goal, I think we'll absolutely, they could just fold like a pack of cards and we can absolutely go on to do that. However, if the worst happens and we end up not winning, obviously all that's going to do is further, it's create a sort of sense of nervousness, sense of panic. And I suppose the only slight doubt I have in my mind is maybe this team have almost got like a bit of a gremlin in their head about Exeter City, because obviously the away game was the game that Tom cleverly said derailed our season. It had a hangover effect of about 5 or 6 games on that. We obviously had the home game, which I still think we deserved to win on the balance of chances created. We forced their keeper into a number of good saves, but we didn't play anything like the fluid or calm football that we can play at our very best. We just looked a bit panicked, looked a bit flustered throughout much of the game. I think we maybe played a bit too much the game. Played a bit too much the occasion and not quite enough the game. So I just hope that this team haven't got a bogeyman in the head threat to the City, and we can just go out there, play the football we're capable of playing, and convincingly beat them. And it'll be a great springboard to start the season if that is the case. But I just worry that Home Park could get a bit nervy, get a bit tetchy if there's an early goal against, and certainly if the worst result happens, that could be the case as well.
John, Tom Cleverley could do with winning one of these, I should say, pretty quickly. There's every chance he might not ever manage one ever again as Argyle head coach, given the trajectories it would seem both clubs are on. Is the biggest problem Argyle have tomorrow night complacency rather than anything else? Because the eyes of the footballing world will look at where Exeter are as a club and a squad. Matt Taylor was on BBC Radio Devon the other week, I think. I could be wrong. Apologies if I'm being misquoted, saying they liked a couple of the Torquay players but wouldn't be able to sign them. I mean, the clubs are at two opposite ends of the spectrum here. This is the perfect opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, I completely disagree with you, actually. I don't think the issue is complacency at all. I would be astonished if they were not anything other than well prepared and well up for it. The issue is something like the opposite, which is getting so far in their own heads about it and so nervous about it, and it kind of creates a paralysis, I think. And that does worry me a little bit because, you know, even when we improved in the second half of last season and became incredibly good, the two games that meant the most to the fan base were Bolton at home and Exeter at home, given, you know, the local rivalry and obviously the shoey stakes in the other one. And we were visibly off our game in both. We were visibly overthinking patterns of play. And his comments in the media around those games just unsettles me a little bit. Now, I did watch his press conference and an interview that he did at the end of last week, and I didn't really detect any of the same causes to worry. But my concern is we don't go out there and treat this just like any other game against a League Two team, with kind of, you know, due professionalism and respect, but, you know, a healthy confidence. It is that we go out there and treat this like a kind of referendum on Cleverley's time as Argyle manager and sort of build it up into something much more than it is. Because we should be honest. I mean, like, the Carabao Cup is not a priority for us. If we lose tomorrow night, it would be embarrassing. The fans will be angry. There's a reason to like turn a defeat into a catastrophic start to the season more broadly. In fact, you know, given what I said earlier about how at the back end of last season, the players seemed to respond to these kinds of setbacks against the likes of Bolton and Exeter by going out and winning the next game, or you know, it didn't really sort of knock us off our stride in any broader sense. It wouldn't surprise me if we were to lose tomorrow night and then go out and beat Stockport. I don't think this needs to be a big psychodrama. That being said, I think a win, and a comfortable win, would clearly get the place fired up, would do a lot for confidence. Again, it's the Carabao Cup. It's not, you know, these games seem to be being played as kind of a glorified last preseason friendly before the action starts. That seems to be how it's being framed. You know, I think that is a little bit disrespectful to the competition, and I hope we don't treat it that way. But this is not a priority. It's not that important, right? And that's also, I would say, probably doubly true for Exeter, who have a stretched squad, as we've just discussed. I mean, I would, if I were them, actively not be hoping to go through. You know, obviously the win over Argyle would be great from their point of view, but I think they actually could do without going deep in cups this season, to be honest with you. So my concern is, it's not complacency, it's the opposite. But I think we should just have too much about us for them at this stage of their footballing life cycle, and hopefully it won't come down to, you know, nervy moments in the second half. Hopefully we'll have already done the business.
Well, yeah, exactly. Graham, before we get on to team selection, obviously the draw's going to be done before we kick off tomorrow night. It's going to be done in the Sky Sports studio by David Prutton, Joby McAnuff and Jamie Mackey. Now, I could be wrong, and apologies if I'm getting my wires crossed here. Didn't we go to Leyton Orient one night, knowing that we had Tottenham at home in the next round? We're 2-0 up at half-time. Everybody was getting excited for that big glamour tie in the next round, and we lost it 3-2.
Sorry, Joe, very quickly. This is partially true, but nobody was really getting that excited because it was in September of 2020 when it was fully behind closed doors. So nobody would, in fact, have been able to go to the glamour tie. But you are functionally correct.
Getting excited about the fact of playing Tottenham Hotspur, who at the time,
Harry Kane and Jose Mourinho would have been at home park. Yeah,
exactly. And Graham, there is the possibility, we shouldn't avoid this subject, that not only are Tottenham Hotspur in the second round draw of the Carabao Cup, but also so are Chelsea. Like, this is a there's a big carrot that could be dangled before kickoff. Could that be an issue as well?
And West Ham as well, for those who want to see Argyle at the London Stadium. I put that as a ground to visit. I've got to disagree with John. This is a must-win. We have got to come out of the blocks and hammer them. I'm sorry. After last season's away defeat at Exeter City's, I can't even name the ground, to be fair, that we need revenge. I want revenge. I never want to experience that again. And it's bad enough at home when we got a fairly late equaliser, didn't we? I think it was fairly late in the game, and we scrambled a draw. This is the game to put one on them. I think, didn't we beat them 4-0 in a FA Cup game on a Friday night a few years ago, Sam? I seem to recall.
I think that would be even before my time, to be honest with you.
Well, probably was, but I do remember it, and I remembered the elation of it. I don't want to feel that again. I want to come out of Home Park knowing that we've done them, and I make no apologies for that, because just imagine if we can, the lift it would give the crowd come and go into the Stockport game. It is important. The draw might make it even more important. They've only got 4 players, I think, likely to start out of last season, and that's if Wareham starts. And given he's their prized asset, are they going to risk him? I do wonder. He might be on the subs bench. I think they'd probably write off the game to get through to the league. But this is our time. We've got to put that 2-0 defeat right, because that was just so awful. It's got to be done and done tomorrow night, and I really look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget that was the nadir of our season last year, wasn't it? We were at our lowest
Absolutely,
and they pulled our pants down and humiliated us on national television.
Yep,
it's payback time.
Absolutely.
Let's be honest, John and Sam, you can jump in on this if you want. Normally at this time of a preview, we would talk about the opposition's threats and things. I don't know about you. I'm really concerned Exeter, well, concerned's probably not the right word, but I really feel Exeter are in big trouble in League 2 next year. Looking at that squad that they've got, if you put it down on paper, if they lose Wareham, and let's be honest, the longer they keep Wareham, the more detrimental it will be to them, because they'll run out of time to reinvest the money in getting replacements in. They're in real trouble, aren't they?
Yeah, they're in absolutely enormous trouble. I mean, like they can't even afford to bring in National League South high end players. So they're either looking at maybe high end players from even lower step, like the Southern Premier, or fringe players who aren't getting anywhere near anyone's team, players who've been let go by other League 2 clubs and are kind of desperate for a club. That's the kind of only player they're able to sign at the moment. They might potentially reinvest some of the Wareham fee. I still don't think, even then, I don't think for a minute they're going to be paying a fee for a player, even if they do sell Wareham. They're going to be reinvesting it possibly into wages, or they can maybe sign a better caliber of player. But I think they're in enormous trouble. I think the limitations of their ownership model have been exposed. Very admirable in some senses of fans running the club. Obviously, there are ways that ownership model can work. I mean, look at Barcelona, look at Germany with the 50+1, but certainly in the lower league level that they're in and that we're in, very much does show the limitations of having a trust-run club unless you seek external investment a lot to subsidise it, which they haven't done to a good enough of an extent, in my honest view, or certainly haven't succeeded in doing that in any case. Financially, they're in the mire. Their squad isn't good. I think Matt Taylor's a bit of a busted flush. He had that one good first spell at Exeter where he got them, I think, promoted or certainly kept them up and was punching above his weight with them. Got poached by Rotherham, did poorly at Rotherham, did poorly at Bristol Rovers, and yes, okay, extenuating circumstances, had a very poor squad, had financial hardship, but only won 1 in about 15 games tail end of last season. I don't think Matt Taylor's up to much as a manager. I think this will be his last job in the EFL, is my honest prediction about him. So the manager's not much good. The squad isn't much good. they're not going to be able to improve their squad much. Wareham's their big threat. Yes, Cole as well is an all right player, but he'll be a decent player for them if they stay. But yeah, overall, I don't think there's many League Two quality players in their squad, and I think those that are not exactly high end League Two. They've lost Niskanen to Blackpool, who was probably their second best player after Wareham. He incidentally got injured for Blackpool yesterday, having had full availability for Exeter last season, got injured on his debut for Blackpool. I haven't yet finalised my Premier League, Championship, and League Two predictions. The same I have my League One, but I do have a draft, and I don't think I'm spoiling too much by saying that I've got them in the bottom two. I've got them to drop straight down to the conference. It's my prediction for them at the minute.
So my predictions, I also do every other league, as I mentioned with Sam and a couple of other mates. And those are provisional apart from the League one, which we showed you earlier. I don't have Exeter to go down, actually. I have them closer to lower mid-table, sort of in the, I can't remember exactly where, somewhere in the 15th to 19th range. I rate Taylor a bit more than Sam. I actually felt that they played with a bit of pride towards the end of last season. And I think there are a lot of really, really bad teams and also basket case clubs that have been circling the drain in League Two for a long time. Now, that's not to say they can't go down. I mean, I'm not sure what the stats are, but like there is a real threat of teams going out of League One and going straight down again because statistically it's something that happens surprisingly often when you would expect, I guess, relegated teams to be one of the stronger teams in the league below.
There's examples, aren't there? Forest
quite a lot.
Mind, Tranmere have done it. I think Southend or Scunthorpe have done it. Maybe both of those. There's quite a few.
So it could happen. I think, to be clear, I do share a lot of Sam's concerns about the squad.
I wouldn't sound concerned. I wouldn't sound concerned.
Okay. Sam's analysis. That being said, one potential model for them is Cheltenham from last season. I think the sort of like Cognoscenti take on Cheltenham last year was that they were going to go down from League One and hurtle straight through League Two because they looked an absolute mess. And I think they were under Michael Flynn at the beginning of last season, and they were terrible. I think they may have lost the first 8 games or something, and it looked like they were gone. They appointed Steve Cottrell. He came in and improved them, and they finished lower mid-table. It can happen. You can arrest that downward momentum. And to me, Exeter are more screwed than Cheltenham were this time last year. No question about that. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's a somewhat similar trajectory.
Sorry, John, this isn't meant derogatory, because I do love intellectualizing this show. But what the hell was that word you said?
The cognoscenti, meaning the people in the know about the lower leagues.
Right, okay. I wasn't being derogatory. I just had no idea what that meant.
I genuinely just couldn't think of another word.
As opposed to IT.
Well, no, it's not really ITK, because ITK implies that you know about things that are happening behind the scenes rather than just people who are knowing about, have detailed knowledge of the way teams kind of look overall. But anyway.
Can I just make a point about Exeter, because I think it's important. I don't want them to go down. Their fan-based model has served them really well. And Sam will remember when we were in administration, the first club that came to our aid to help us with the fans' trust and how to pull through was Exeter City. And that should never be forgotten, because it was incredibly valuable, and I will always commend them for that. Just don't want them to be in the same division as us, so I don't have to go to, I can't name the ground, so I haven't got to go there again. But I don't want them to go down. I hope the fans' trust can sort the finances out. I mean, basically, they haven't had the cup runs, they haven't had the player trading that's got them through in previous years. Hopefully the Wareham deal, if somebody buys him, will help stabilise them. And I don't, like John, I don't think they'll go down, but they'll be sweating a bit.
I want to be very, very clear on something. I certainly don't hope they go bust. I want to make that very clear, because for me and Graham, having had experience in 2011, we know how awful that is to even have the threat of that, never mind the reality. So I want to be very clear. I certainly don't hope they get liquidated, but it wouldn't lose me.
Sam, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. The trust have still got quite a lot of money in reserve, but it's quite painful for fans to give the money to the club all the time, and they've done it a couple of times. They just need the Wareham signing to stabilise them. Hopefully it'll come, but not from Argyle, it seems. So.
I think they're asking a bit too much for him. It's the cognoscente It's never a new word I've learned today. I think the Cognoscente take is they're asking a bit too much for him, that they want somewhere more around the 2 million mark, and teams aren't really willing to pay that. And I think it will be maybe more like the lower 7-figure range he'll end up going for.
If at all.
Well, possibly, yeah. In answer to Alex at Argyle on YouTube, when was the last time we passed the second round of the Carabao Cup? Can't remember. I can tell you that. It was 12 months ago. We beat a very youthful QPR side.
No, that was in the first round.
First round.
You said
What
we
was the first
passed
round
the
last
second
year?
round. Yes, it
Oh,
was.
past the second round. Sorry. Go on, Sam.
I can tell you, and I can give you the date. It was 25th of September 2007. We beat Wickham in the first round, 2-1. Doncaster in the second round, 2-0. And then we went to West Ham away. Our last ever visit to Upton Park was in the League Cup third round, Tuesday, September 25th, 07. I didn't go. That was back in my school days. It wasn't a school night, but by all accounts, we played pretty well, and we lost to a last-minute winner from Dean Ashton to send West Ham through to round 4.
Class player. Streets will not forget.
There you go. Maybe I should read comments a little bit clearer next time, especially given I've got 2 monitors to read them.
Well, we've got past the first round like quite a lot of times, to be fair. Like quite Bristol City away when we beat them, QPR home when Frank Nouble scored. Peterborough.
The last 3 seasons we've been into the second round. At least the last 3 seasons.
I think probably something like maybe like 6 of the last 7, even, because obviously we lost to Peterborough at home in the title season. Then I think the year before that we beat Peterborough. Year before that we beat QPR, and year before that we beat Leyton Orient, and then the year before that we beat Bristol City. So actually, yeah, 7 out of the last 8 years we won in the first round. The only year we didn't being the 101 point year.
There you go. So it pays to get beat in the first round. We're going to win League One. John, I throw you Murphy Cooper, Wes Harding, Matthias Ross, Alex Mitchell, Alex Hartridge, Ronan Curtis, Harvey White, Malachi Boateng, Xavier Amici, Bim Peppel, and Owen Aseni or Will Evans?
Aseni, I think. But yeah, I think it'll be that team, this is the team that finished the first half against Bristol City, right? Because Beidou obviously came off before halftime. Yeah, I think it'll be that. I want to stress, I personally don't think it'll be catastrophic if we lose, but I do think that the benefits of winning are worth having. And obviously, just from an emotional point of view, we should want to win the game. I don't think this is the time to be mucking around with changes to the team or experimental lineups. Also, if nothing else, it's a good opportunity to give that side a structured run out in a competitive fixture before we open the season. And it could well be actually that this being a more competitive fixture for us than whatever Stockport did this weekend, actually I have no idea, is a real advantage, in terms of our season essentially starting 1 week earlier in terms of, a really important game coming, coming this early on. Yeah, so I think that will be the team. I would imagine that we'll see something of Evans. I guess the ideal circumstance would be if we can get the game won by halftime or just after, that he can come on and have half an hour to sort of try and bed in to the lineup. It wouldn't shock me if he starts. If Cleverley just has a really, really clear idea for him, and they've talked about it over the weekend, and they trust him as he's 29 years old, and Graham, I think, mentioned earlier he was a late bloomer, but someone who's been around for a few years. It's not like he's a 19-year-old you're asking to come in and do an unknown job. It's possible that they have a defined role for him and he's straight in the team. What an introduction that would be, by the way, if he's to come in and score. I think whoever had him as their under the radar player earlier on, he certainly wouldn't be if he manages to come on and score tomorrow. But yeah, but I think it'll be off the bench. And so the lineup would be what Joe said.
I don't know how many of those nice seats there are in the dugouts these days, but there might be a couple extra needed because there are 9 substitutes available as well that you can name tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. So you can name 9.
Great opportunity for a few of the young lads to get on the bench without without the under 18s. Maybe they won't come on, use the experience of being around the match play squad. Maybe the potential to throw them on for 10 at the end if we're 3 or 4 up would be nice. Maybe the likes of Joe Morrow and Seb Campbell or Jared Rendell, could be in the squad.
Yeah, James Sharp, the other one.
James Sharp is the obvious one.
Yeah. So there are options for those guys. Right. For the final time this season without a graphic, John Alsop, your score prediction ahead of tomorrow night's game is?
My head tells me 3-0 with a goal for all three of the strikers, Evans to come on and open his account. My heart tells me that we'll lose on penalties, having drawn a team away from home at a ground that I haven't been to.
3-0 win.
Graham?
3-1 win. And can I just say for the record, the Sunday Times, in their list of top sporting events of this week, had the Argyle game as number 2 behind the European Athletics. So there are. Recognition at last.
I would say that's ridiculous, but to be honest, it is that kind of lull period where I couldn't actually name another sport.
It's not ridiculous, John.
On. Yes, it is. It's the Carabao Cup.
Sky love coming to Home Park. They love it.
So much so, they're only coming twice this first half of the season.
Yeah, for evening games. And of course, the next round of the Carabao Cup for the Plymouth Argyle.
When Chelsea come to town and ITV are showing us.
The worst thing about losing genuinely will be having to listen to Gary Weaver screaming about soil or castles or fortresses. I could do without that, to be honest. So hopefully we don't have to hear that.
There you go. Just a reminder, it will go straight to penalties tomorrow if the game finishes 0-0 or 1-1 or 2-2 or 6-6 after 90 minutes. And a special reminder as well, Nick from Argyle Displays texted me earlier on the day, more than happy to give them another plug from the podcast. Wear your green tomorrow. If you've bought one of the home shirts that John and Graham are nicely modelling in the last week, Argyle will give £5 for every shirt purchased to Argyle Displays to help them with their banners and tifos and flags through the course of the year. And that deal extends right up until kickoff tomorrow, I believe. I believe Argyle have extended that. So if you haven't bought a home shirt yet, do get along to the club shop tomorrow. You'll not only be helping the club, but you'll also be helping the great team at Argyle Displays, who I'm sure have been busy ahead of tomorrow night getting banners and flags ready. That is just about it. Let's go some AOBs before we go to some questions, because I've got plenty of them started up. Sam, do you have any AOBs? You were the
I've
one who
got
pointed out to me.
Two actually, yeah. Big mention to Callum Wright, who scored a last-minute winner for Hibs at Ibrox in the SPL this weekend. Not the best last-minute away end limbs he's ever created, but certainly in the top 2 after the incredible match at Shrewsbury in 2023. And the other one is a little bit of a personal one for me. I am on TalkSport tomorrow morning with Jeff Stelling and Andy Townsend. They've asked, I did the clip with Jeff Stelling before.
Listen, fair play.
Yeah. If any of you remember, I did a little clip with Jeff Stelling where he got me to guess the Argyle scores. He's got me on to discuss the Devon derby. I'm clearly in their contacts book, and also to maybe test me with a couple of Argyle scores. And if any of you are awake and not otherwise occupied at 6:45 a.m., stick TalkSport on. I'll be on there, or you'll probably be able to watch or listen to it back later on. Just thought I'd put that out there.
So, something tells me whatever date they throw at you, Sam, that will be clipped up and put out as a separate clip anyway. So it'll be widely available for everyone. But yeah, Sam Down branching out his media opportunities.
Even
I was on
more.
Radio Devon on Friday. You can catch that on BBC Sounds if you want, just while we're plugging our own personal media appearances. Right, let's get to some questions. One of them came in on X, which I've got above me on the running order, from @Pilgrim Home Park on X. His handle is FPL_Pilgrim70. I hope FPL_Pilgrim70. You signed up to the Argyle Life CHSW FPL League for this season. Graham, who will captain more games, Joe Edwards or Wes Harding?
Wes Harding.
Yeah, as much as I'd like to see Joe out there every week.
I think Joe will be one of the finishers I referred to earlier, that coming on when we need to boost the game, when we could go to a back five.
If I may, I think that the Edwards sort of imbroglio from this summer, if that probably is a bit putting it a bit too harshly.
That's another word, John.
We want to. No, everyone knows that one. I think we need to not have that happen again. We cannot again be in a situation where he's out of contract and we're like desperate to retain him because he's still one of our key players. I think if we're going to start transitioning him out, it has to be this season. It's not to say that I wouldn't love to see him stay for another one, but I think there needs to be a change of his role from someone who we absolutely rely on to start every week to someone who can come in and do a job, obviously, and is still going to be a hugely important part of the squad, but is more of a squad player than a starter for me.
I get that, Jordan, but I do still think, despite all that, he is still our best right back, and therefore, when right back is a very long way down the list of priorities to sign, he still should start most weeks.
I think Harding might be better at right back.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Joe can't throw a long throw, Sam.
Neither can Harding, according to you guys earlier. But,
No, I said he could, but not as far as Hartridge. That's all.
I hope Alex at Argyle is actually referring to Joe Edwards rather than me, because it's my first show of the year. I can't surely be my last season already. Right, let's get on to some of the starred questions. If I don't show you any of your comments now, it's because we've got 2 separate pages for comments and questions. That's why. Tom asks on YouTube, John, if Argyle lose in the playoffs this year, does Cleverley get the sack?
nope.
Nice and easy. Sam Down. Andy Argyle 8822. Will Derek Adams re-sign a new contract?
Yeah, he's a wily old fox. He's dropping that one casually in when he was talking about what a good job he's done. Oh yeah, I'm out of contract in November. You know, don't mention it. Don't put any pressure on the board to offer me a new one. No, I think he will.
To be fair, Sam, he was actually asked the question, when does your contract run out? He didn't volunteer it, but he did volunteer that Ronan Curtis only cost £30,000. So I think amounts to the same thing, I think.
I'm being a little bit mischievous with that, but yeah, short answer, yes, I think he will.
I think he's pretty happy with the deal he negotiated, isn't he? That's why he was happy to get that out into the public domain. Graham, how many loans do you reckon we need that can make the difference in getting into the top 2?
Well, we've got the option of 5. I would hope we get at least 3 and save 2 for January.
Can I just say quickly, my worry about Adams is that he does want to stay and that everything is going swimmingly when his contract's up, and that powers that be at the football club in a bid to save a little bit of money say, well, the problem he came in to solve is fixed now and everything's fine. So goodbye, Derek. That's my worry, but hopefully
John,
they value him highly.
Take it from me, from what I've heard, that is not the case.
Good.
The what Derek has done in January and summer is highly regarded by the owner. Highly regarded.
Good.
Something tells me we'd have a very unhappy head coach as well if that was the decision that the hierarchy took, given what he said in the press conference the other week.
Yeah.
I guess I would just say that it would not be unlike this football club of late to make a baffling decision that is totally at odds with noises that have previously come out in the press. But there we go. We'll see. I hope you're right.
He also made the point he didn't want to return to ordinary football management. I think he's enjoying the director of football role. So long may it continue serving as well.
Absolutely. Graham Bonas, is tomorrow a sellout? From what I can see, I don't think. Is it? Graham's nodding.
Yeah, I mean it keeps dipping in and out because people can sell on their seats. So if you go on one time, it's just the odd 1 or 2. I mean, you call it in Sky terms, it would be a sellout.
Yeah. In FIFA terms, they've sold the stadium 3 times over.
Exactly.
VW Coco asked, did we actually have bids turned down for Michael Mellon or not?
Well, I think, was it Peter O'Rourke, who's one of the more reliable ones, seemed to say we've made inquiries. I know he's not got a squad number, and I also know he hasn't been playing pre-season, but I did see on Passotti before coming on, somebody had posted, I think Alan Nixon had hinted that he was going somewhere else.
Yeah, I would add to that, an inquiry into very different things from a bid, and I'll return to the point I always make, and I'll probably bore you all to sleep with it. Clubs always have a list of targets. They always have a plan B, C, D, and even an E and an F. And probably last season, Argyle got down to about G looking for the striker. And I think in summer 2023, we probably got down to about K looking for the striker. But there's always a few on the list.
And we still never got one. Stevie Vaughan asks, who do we think will send out on loan to aid development? This is something Tom Cleverley muted in the press conference last week, that he suspects 1 or 2 of them will be. Interestingly, I don't know whether it was just because he was on his mind because of his injury. He name dropped Tegan Finn when he was talking about the development of youngsters. I'd be very surprised by that personally. But who are we expecting? We're not surely going to send Caleb Roberts and Freddie Asaka out on loan again, are we?
I think Caleb Roberts will. Freddie, I think, will be kept as cover until we get people in. So it might be late. And to be fair, I mean, Freddie's shown bursts of pace. I mean, I think he is the fastest player in the club. I would keep Freddie. If Caleb Roberts can get a League Two or National League side, that would be good. Something like Yeovil would be good for him. Not that team up the road. I don't think we should send any players there.
Well, you hope they'd stay up, Graham, so he might help with that aim, in fairness.
No. But we want a career development going to that team up the road. I wouldn't necessarily put as career development.
Yeah,
Tegan, I want Tegan to stay. Actually, the injuries, I mean, I think he played 18 games last season, surprisingly. We've got a lot of the Premier Under-21s. We've got the Virtue Trophy. I'd rather keep Tegan until January to see what he can do, because the boy's got ability. He needs to get a consistent run. So I would, Caleb Roberts definitely, but Freddie I think will stay because of the gap on the left, and Finn I want to prove how good a player he is, because there's talent.
I'm with you. I think Tegan Finn's great. I wonder if he's one of those who's been stiffed a little by the 4-4-2. He's a pure.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I mean, he does.
Yeah.
He's trouble is Amichi's the same sort of player, stepping off the left all the time. So he's behind Xavier Amici, unless you put Ronan Curtis on the left, which for some reason he doesn't seem to be so effective. I don't know why.
I think with Tegan Finn, you have got to put him either as the right or the left in the 4-4-2. I guess maybe you could put him as a second striker, but like either way, you're putting him out of position. He's an attacking midfielder all over. 4-2-3-1 is probably the system that would really suit him.
I agree. Yeah.
He's got
or 4-3-3 even possibly.
Yeah, that tight area, running with the ball, bit of skills, bit of creativity, knows where the goal is as well. Can't really think of a player more suited to a 4-2-3-1 in our squad than him, apart from, as you say, maybe Amici would be the one who would be on a par with him in that regard. But but like I said, I do think that Tom Cleverley, who did do an interview on our good friends Pilgrim's Pod recently, did say in that interview that in the long run he was going to stick with 4-4-2 this season as the plan A because it works, it fits around the squad. He did quite explicitly say, how would I then take this team to the next level if kind of with the didn't quite say it, but kind of hinted, if we go up to the Championship, how would I take this team to the next level? And he sort of said the answer was an extra midfielder, which, to be fair, is exactly what somebody whose name I've not mentioned or podcast, by the way, which is exactly what Stephen Schumacher did when we got promoted to the Championship. Added another midfielder in to get more control of the game. And it's exactly what TC said he would probably do if we went up as well. And I think if we can, maybe if Tegan Finn gets a good loan this season, we go up, move to a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1. Maybe you'd come back in for a Championship and have a bit of an Adam Randall kind of impact. Very different style of player to Adam Randall, but just in the sense of a young player who steps up to the level and develops.
But I mean, I think he's 18, isn't he? So
very young. Very young.
Adam Randall took 3 more years to get established in the team. And we forget that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And this is the point that I always make regarding Roberts and Isaka. But people tell, they've been around so long, they're never going to make it. They're going to end up at Torquay, this, that, and the next thing. Like, well, maybe they will, but there's no guarantees of it because they played far more games at a far more younger age than Adam Randall or Michael Cooper did. So Randall's great season was the 21-22. He had already had his 21st birthday before he even started a game for Argyle, Adam Randall, whereas Isaka only turned 20 the other week, and I think Roberts is still himself yet to turn 21. And
Bradley Abraham is 21.
Yeah, I think he's 22 now. Actually,
no, he's 20. He's 22 in October.
Fair enough.
He's still 21.
My apologies. He's near. Yeah, he's 21.
That's still 15 yellow cards away.
Yeah, very, very, very good. But yeah, I think that's important to remember that there is still every chance Roberts and Isaka could have good careers at League One or even the Championship. I will maintain that for at least another season yet, maybe more. I think we probably are going to, of that trio, Roberts, Isaka and Finn, we are probably going to have to only loan out 2 of the 3, just based around the fact of the squad rules means you have to have a homegrown player either in your matchday squad or in the 25-man registered squad. You have to have a homegrown player in that, or if you don't, you can only play 6 subs. So I think to get around that, we will certainly keep
Play
one
five subs and name 7.
Yes. But what I'm saying is, if you don't comply with the homegrown player, you can only name 6. Is the rule.
Yeah. Play 5. Yeah.
Is it still play 5? Fair enough. But even so, you don't really want that. So I think we will keep one of the 3 around the club, and I think that one, based on noises coming out of the media, will be Isaka. And I think Roberts and Finn will get a loan. So I think Roberts will get a League 2 loan, and Finn, I hope we'll get a League 2 loan. Maybe just with his age, it might be a conference loan, but we'll see.
Sam, I've not discussed this with you. It's taken you 2 hours and 10 minutes to get a mention of our former Imperial leader into the podcast. Will you donate £1 for every mention you give this year of Stephen Schumacher on a podcast to Children's Hospice Southwest?
You might bankrupt me, but yeah, sure, why not? It's all in a good cause.
Very good.
Starting from after the season starts, that was a freebie.
There we go.
I think that's going to be tough for Sam wallet wise, because when he storms out of Bolton because he's furious about their transfer business and they're in the relegation zone in October, and then gets the first available job with a club that is in direct competition with Argyle at the top of League One, then he might be someone who's on the agenda legitimately rather than just for reasons.
I want to be very, very clear that this pledge is voided in any of the following scenarios. If it's a preview pod for a game against his team, if it's a match day review pod of a game against his team, or if we rehire him. In any of those 3 scenarios, it's voided.
That works for me, and I'm sure it does for the people at Children's Hospice Southwest, because they've got a big donation coming their way. Couple left to do. I'm going to restructure this question from Kenny Pesto, if he doesn't mind. If we do well, is there any possibility of Tom Cleverley being poached? I mean, young English.
That largely led into the scenario about rehiring Schumacher, didn't it? That's couldn't have timed that one better.
Yeah, of course, could happen. Managers at this level, when they do well, there's no guarantee they'll stick around. Obviously, we have learned that from experience. That was being at a higher level. Lincoln have sort of had our experience with Schumacher on steroids, unfortunately for them, although they did win in the cup yesterday at Derby. According to sort of scuttlebutt, he was potentially approached about the possibility of a couple of championship jobs this summer. I mean, I heard something about the Blackburn job, which I would not personally want to take at the moment, given the state of that football club and their, likely aspirations. I also think Cleverley, obviously it's hard to know what's in his heart. I think he is sincere. My sense is that he is sincere when he says or implies that he knows he was very lucky to keep his job here last season. And I don't think that's resulted in a debt of kind of permanent loyalty to the club or anything. And I'm sure if he got an attractive offer, that made sense for him, he would take it. I also think he's got his head screwed on and knows, partly as a result of the experience last season, that the grass is not always greener, right? Like, he knows that from his Watford days. If a job came up in the Championship and it was at an unstable, firing club, maybe one that plays in red and white stripes in an area famous for its pottery historically, who knows, just to sort of pluck one example out of the air. I think he would be more likely than other managers at this level to look at the pros and cons of that in a really serious way and think in a more long-term way. Okay, well, if I go there and I fail, am I just another failed Championship manager? Am I back in League One? Am I better off actually trying to see the project through here? So it's not to say that there wouldn't be any offer or any project that could appeal to him. If a stable, well-run Championship side has their manager poached to go to the Prem, for example, and Cleverley is approached as the candidate,
or to go to Stoke.
Well, yes, which could happen. I think it's possible he sees that as a good bet. I'd be surprised if he is on the first literal chopper out of Saigon, as it were, and gets and just sort of takes any championship job that comes calling for him. I could be proven wrong. I'm absolutely not. I think loyalty is not a reasonable expectation of football managers, and certainly not a realistic one. But I sense that he is committed here and is sincere when he says he is, and obviously that can change. But I think he'll think about it carefully.
He's not going to get a better owner, a better setup that he has got control of, working with a director of football who doesn't interfere. That's not going to happen virtually at any other club.
Yeah, I basically agree.
The only danger is, and Sam's alluded to it earlier, is a change of ownership of the club and different aspirations and thoughts. Hopefully, if that happens, we'll be maintaining the same way of working. But we all know what happens when changes of owners happen and they have different thinking. Over time, it can change, and that's.
They might do something really terrible, like appoint a high-profile England footballer who doesn't have a great record in management, for example.
Who'd think it?
The other consideration here is that managers getting poached is a fact of life, and it's in some ways a nice problem to have because it means that often means that you're doing well. It doesn't always, because sometimes you do see managers get poached from teams that are lower down the same league as a team that's hiring, and it happens to be a good fit for one reason or another. But by and large, it's because they have done an impressive body of work. So if it means that we're top in December and someone comes in for him, then that's a bridge we're going to have to cross. But I probably would take it to be top in December, if that makes sense.
To be clear, I would absolutely also take the scenario in which he's poached and we're top in December. And just to quickly add, don't forget, if Argyle managers are going to leave in any month, there's a very good chance it's going to be December. Ryan Lowe, Stephen Schumacher, and Wayne Rooney all left the building in the month of December.
Rooney only just.
Yes.
True.
Last fun question then, just don't have to go into great detail. If we do win tomorrow, who do you want in the second round of the League Cup?
Tottenham away.
Yeah, I fought extremely for my sins as a kid, had a soft spot for Tottenham alongside Argyle, and we have never played them. This was actually, it's nothing to do with family or anything. I just got into football during the 2002 World Cup and thought Teddy Sheringham was class, even though it was the sort of twilight era of his career. Found out he played for Spurs. This is long since passed, thankfully, but yeah, it's still as a childhood me, that's like a huge glamour fixture. I really, really want Argyle to play one day. And obviously, as Sam alluded to, I think earlier, or someone did, we came close during that COVID season. And I'd like that to happen. And it being in London would be convenient. So yeah, Spurs away would be great.
Sam?
Alex, you've asked when was the last time we played Spurs. We beat them 6-2 last season, Alex. Keep up. Yeah. Who do I think we'll get in the next round? Obviously, it's a random draw is my serious answer. I would like it to be Fulham or West Ham away, because I am rapidly wanting to tick off the remaining boxes on my 92. I've only got 9 to go, and those are because Bromley have obviously we're going to go to later in the season anyway. They've gone out, and I've been to Spurs as a neutral. The famous day of Chelsea away, we were the 12:30 kickoff. Spurs were the 8 p.m. So I went to watch the Spurs Brighton game just to get a taster of their ground. So as much as I would also love Spurs Argyle, just because it's a heck of a glamour tie, revenue driver. I'm trying to tick through my remaining 92. So the only two that could feasibly be are West Ham away or Fulham away. Sorry, Alex, I was being a bit tongue in cheek. Of course, it's not their actual team. I think the last time their actual team was kind of late 80s. I wouldn't be able to give you the exact late 80s.
A serious question: Is the draw at all regionalised at this point?
Yes, it is.
Just this round, I think. Yeah.
And then it goes to full nationwide from the third round.
Yep.
Of course, Tottenham away would be a nice payday as well, because 45% of the ticket gates get split between each club. Each club get 45%. So,
and we also get to see the best youth setup outside of Catalonia in action.
But I'm going to be totally different. I'd love to see Chelsea's band of £1 billion bottle jobs, or whatever they were called, a few years ago, rock up at Home Park and see Xabi Alonso humbled on the touchline at Home Park. That would make my day. But look, we've got to get past Exeter first. As easy as we feel that might be, we still have to go out there and do it tomorrow night. Sam, very quickly, I'll I'll humour Alex for this one. 21st of February 2015.
It was Exeter 1, Plymouth Argyle 3. It was a Ruben Reid hat-trick. First
Great
hat-trick
day.
in a Devon derby in nearly 90 years it was at the time. And Ollie Lee got sent off for Argyle.
Yeah, great day. I remember that one well.
I think the 3-game ban for Ollie Lee was celebrated more than the win.
It might well have been. Gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been 2 hours and 25 minutes, but it has absolutely flown by.
Nice
That
tight
is it.
65 minutes there, Joe.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Just to let you all know, we will be trimming down the podcast moving into this season. Well, we'll be trying to. We have a very loose running order that we're going to try and keep to, because we don't want to keep you all too long on Sunday nights, but we will do our best. The likelihood is that we will ramble on. I know that, but it's worth the effort, isn't it? Thank you to the 1,300 of you who are currently watching live. If you have joined us halfway through, the podcast will be available as soon as I click end stream. You'll be able to go back on YouTube and watch the whole thing in its entirety. Please, please, please give what you can to our donation appeal for Children's Hospice Southwest. Those of you who do FPL, please do join our FPL league. It'll be great fun. We'll give regular updates at the end of every month as to who's doing well in the league. And do keep across all our platforms as well going through the season. We've got so many exciting things planned. Sam Down's very much involved in one of those things. I am currently organising one of the other big things involved in that as well. So we've got plenty to do to raise as much funds as we can for Children's Hospice Southwest, and any help you can give us on that journey is greatly appreciated. So thank you to John, Sam and Adam. John, Sam and Adam, I'm reading my script, sorry Graham. John, Sam and Graham, you can join us again on Tuesday night. No rest for the wicked. We are straight back into it on Tuesday, 8 o'clock. You can join myself, Sam, Adam and Aaron Hocking as we dissect the Exeter game. We will look ahead to who we are playing in the second round of the League Cup, I hope. We will preview Plymouth Argyle women's season, and we will look ahead to the curtain raiser against Stockport County at Home Park on Saturday night. Thank you all for joining us. It's our pleasure to be back for another season, and we will see you all again on Tuesday night. Night all.
Good night.